Welcome back, Red Spotters. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco. It's been a while since we've had a show like this, and it's going to be almost exclusively, if not entirely exclusively, devoted to Marvel content, particularly of the TV variety. Also, I have to thank David. It's been some time since you and I have had some alone time together, as they say, especially on this podcast. It's been an interesting time. I know the last time that we were doing this, well, maybe one of the last times we sat down and we discussed our favorite TV shows of 2021. And then before the fact, we were discussing the Hawkeye recaps. And it's going to be another one of these extended series where we pull the curtain back and we talk about what we think about Moon Knight, the latest Marvel show on Disney Plus for the next, what I have to believe are 5 weeks. Yes, the next 5 weeks. Because for whatever reason, one of my issues with these shows is there's 6 episodes, and I wish they weren't just 6 episodes, but we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, Moon Knight, starring the amazingly talented and just beautiful Oscar Isaac in everything. And then also Ethan Hawke and a whole bunch of other people with, I guess what you would call Marvel Comics Caped Crusader, a character I literally had no idea existed before they announced this TV show a few years back. So again, this is an interesting time because this podcast is going to be devoted to a lot of things Marvel. We are going to get to the Moon Knight episode, the first episode of this 6-episode extended series, as well as other materials in this world. But because it is the first time David and I are here, we have some house cleaning to take care of. So I want to apologize first and foremost for kind of, I guess, unintentionally misleading the audience last time you and I were talking about a Marvel show. Because at that time, Wilson Fisk was reintroduced into the MCU, and we were kind of like flirting with the idea of like, oh, maybe we should actually do a review for Daredevil season 3, like a full-on review. And that was well before we even had any like earthly idea that in just a matter of weeks, that show would no longer be on Netflix and then just and be transported over to Disney Plus. So it's kind of, again, it speaks to the weird time that we're in. But things, I guess, Red Spotlight, I've been having a podcast every week as much as I can, but these last, I can't even believe, January, February, March, 3 months. It feels like we just got out of December. Now we're already like at the end of March, but these last 3 months, I've mainly been like obsessed with getting through as many movies from the year 2021 as possible because it was the awards season. There were a lot of films that I had not had the chance to see. A lot of the awards films in particular were they really are only made available to the public around that window anyway, so that's what I was watching, so many films. And then also the new movies that we had for 2022, like Turning Red and The Batman. Just this past weekend I went to go see X, the new A24 release, and then also The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. That was a hilarious double feature. But we'll have a review, Peter and I will have a review on those films. I would assume soon, and then also sometime in April, because the Academy Awards have now passed, which, by the way, we'll discuss the Academy Awards at some point on our show. I would assume soon. We also, yeah, I know, right? Also, we have to unveil, because I feel like the time is due, our favorite films of the year 2021. And I'm happy to say, as I've been saying now, that as we're primarily, the show that brings you all of the lists that are coming out of the world of movies and more, I have been seeing more movies than I ever have in the span of a year. And so every day for the last couple of months now, I've just been rearranging my top 10 and thinking about what movies. And I think for a while now, I've had a good 9 out of 10 locked in. What has been kind of fluid is their positions, in the rankings and everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's locked now, and I'm ready to go. Kyle has informed me that his top 5 is locked, and I think Peter is more or less good to go. So I think things are moving ahead nicely. And so that's all content that you should stay here on Red Spotlight, as well as our weekly Moon Knight reviews. And then also with Daredevil, because it is on Disney Plus, I have to assume that at some point we are going to have the time to actually see it. Maybe in the summer I'll have more time maybe to see it, and then we can actually review it, along with audio commentaries that honestly I'm just chomping at the bit to go and record, because I know I want to do commentaries on Dune. Fuck it, we'll do it on Nightmare Alley and West Side Story and Luca, maybe. I don't know. Encanto, Eternals, Suicide Squad, Malignant. Let's do an audio commentary on Malignant. Funny. I just saw Malignant, by the way. I rewatched it again 2 nights ago. Nice. Love it. Love that film so much. It's so crazy. A lot of the chills I had the first time I felt it again. So again, please, if you keep listening to our shows, that's going to drop. We got a lot more stuff coming at you. Now, other stuff that we had. Okay. Because all of that was happening in January, February, and March, at least for me, and also Peter was very busy, there wasn't really much time to even, or maybe even interest to do a weekly recap on other shows like Book of Boba Fett or Peacemaker. But I think for the most part, Peter and I, when we were on a show, and that was basically every week during that time, we did do, I think, mostly a weekly update on what we felt was, the new episode, how we liked the new episode of Peacemaker and everything. And then also we included a little bit of Boba Fett, but that was a crazy time when both of those shows were kind of concurrent. They were airing around the same time. I do believe, David, you had the chance in a recent podcast with Alexis and myself, and you did speak on Peacemaker and how much you liked it. And I mean, who couldn't like Peacemaker? Mm-hmm. And I have to be honest, part of, I would have to say, a little bit of a lack of enthusiasm toward a lot of the new MCU shows that are going to be happening this year has to do a lot with the fact that Peacemaker was so fucking good, so out of the water, out of the gate for 2022. It's just hard to see any show, any comic book show, maybe even just coming close to it, much less topping, how exciting and how great Peacemaker was. Did you get an opportunity to say anything about how you felt regarding the Book of Boba Fett? Because I don't seem to recall you having the chance to say anything about that. Unless you did, and I just forgot. And I mean, I think that's fair because, I mean, I already forgot all of Boba Fett. Yeah. So, I mean...
chances are I didn't, but I never really saw the show. I only saw reactions to the show, which basically is the same thing.
Yeah.
Because nothing happens in that show.
No. Well, I guess there are some things that happen that are quite stupid, like I guess the death of Cad Bane.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I hated that.
That was awful.
Yeah.
That was just fucking terrible. You bring back that character, and there were so many ways you could have actually make that feel earned and awesome. Mm. And it's, I think what they did with Cad Bane in that show was the single worst thing they could have done with it.
Yeah, especially because they set up this thing of like apparently Cad Bane trained Boba Fett, but they only mentioned it in the last episode, and I'm like, wow, it would have been nice if we got flashbacks of that instead of as a storytelling device in episode, that could have been its own fucking episode. Can you believe there was a show called The Book of Boba Fett, and you had the opportunity to actually show all of that? Which, by the way, it's hard for me to think, or I should say, it's hard for me to believe that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau thought to themselves that it was okay for them to like completely skirt past developing a relationship between those two characters, because they just assumed that, because they assumed that most Star Wars fans were aware of the fact that, in the original planned 6th season of the Clone Wars, as in like not the season 6 that exists today, the season 6 that was planned before Cartoon Network canceled it after Disney acquired it back in 2012, 2013. In the original planned 6th season, there was supposed to be a 4-episode arc of Cad Bane training Boba Fett. And Animatics
that means like unfinished animation of scenes of those episodes. Few of them were released at the one of the Star Wars celebrations or conventions. And it's hard for me to think that they just assumed that, oh, because we've been talking about this, I guess, kind of, that people would already realize that, oh yeah, there's like a dynamic between these characters. But you never actually told that story. You just said, oh yeah, this happened. But you didn't get a chance to tell that story. And by the way, in that original Clone Wars story arc, Cad Bane was supposed to die there. But I guess they still made it to where Boba did kill Cad Bane, at least in this show, which...
I mean, if that were true, that like they just went off the assumption that people know about that story, and if he was supposed to die, then it doesn't matter whether the people know or not. You changed the story now, so you gotta give background. And if we end with the assumption that he is dead, then you gotta explain why he's alive. And so it's just, that sounds kind of lazy.
And we're talking about something that, like, you know, right now you could go and watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which you should. It's a great show. On Disney Plus. But there are 7 seasons. But if you're somebody who's just watching that show now, you'd think, okay, well, there are 7 seasons, and because now there exists like a conclusion, like a proper conclusion to the show. For people who are not aware, who were not there when all of this was going down, or they just didn't know, they wouldn't know, like, the last 2 seasons were planned to have a lot of other stories included, much less, oh yeah, there was a Boba Fett Cad Bane thing. And how the idea that they were expecting the audience to know any of this, well, that's ridiculous, right? So, yeah, the show was a waste of time. A complete and absolute waste of time. But yeah, that was it. So, with all of that being said, we have been doing these recaps of these Marvel shows since Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Can you believe that our first episode that you and I did together when we recapped an episode was the first episode of the 7th and final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which aired in May of 2020, almost 2 years ago.
Nice.
That's crazy. And so that was the only thing Marvel related that came out in 2020. But then in 2021, we had an explosion of stuff. We had WandaVision, we had The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we had Loki, yes. We also had What If, although we didn't really recap that, save for like 1 or 2 discussions. And then, of course, we had Hawkeye. And I'm just talking about, of course, the Disney Plus offerings. That doesn't at all mention the 4 movies, which were Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Spider-Man No Way Home. You may have heard of some of those movies because one of them made like all the money in the world. Literally $1.8 billion. And it's kind of crazy to think that we consumed that much. Like that has to be, like, without question, the most amount of Marvel content ever released. And you have to wonder right now, like, I'm not sure how many people online and a various number of podcasts have like dedicated much like airtime to evaluating that year, not just like individually for the projects and how good or not they were, but like how the studio is doing, managing, making and releasing all that content. It's crazy. And so I think what I want to start off with right now, before we get into anything, especially with the new show Moon Knight and, what to look forward to with this year, I want to just like catch up on like how we feel with first how last year went. And then, I mean, as far as the individual projects are concerned, and what all of those things ultimately did to make us feel about how we feel about Marvel Studios as a production company, as an entity that tells stories primarily with superheroes, based on comic books. And we have had so many hours of podcasts last year that were very much praising a lot of the stuff that they did, but then also on the flip side being very critical. And I think, David, if correct me if I'm wrong, but every project, whether it had been a film or a Disney Plus series, I would say had as much positivity as much as there was negativity. And I don't mean like I mean like criticisms, I should say.
TV shows, yeah. The movies.
And the movies. I mean, the movies. Well, the movies were different. Well, the movies, I would say there was less positivity.
Yeah.
All around. But I guess you could say there were some nice things that were said about the movies, although I don't recall some movies. Well,
there was.
I'll start off with this one. Because I think the movies are a lot simpler to handle than the shows. Because the shows are kind of a little bit more complicated. So the movies. Black Widow was an abysmal disappointment. It is hilarious that the thing that it should have done, which was provide closure to Natasha, was done better in a Hawkeye show. Like, you can't make that shit up. And so as far as a movie is concerned, it's very useless. Yeah. And then as spectacle and as storytelling, it's kind of bad how like low and how comfortable the studio feels like they can just operate on just like being below mid, if that's even a thing. They're so used to just coasting and not even trying. And that's exactly what you felt with watching Black Widow. It's like, wow, you guys didn't even care. And it kind of shows. So there's that. Then came Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And that is a film that I have made no secret about that I've just very much displeased with. When I first saw it, I really enjoyed it. But I did have a lingering suspicion in my mind on that same night about how much I would remember or care about it the next day or after the fact. And it's pretty hilarious to me how, at least to me, and I've been saying this, I think it speaks to how disappointing a movie Black Widow was. That Shang-Chi just almost immediately, like, I guess, like, touched and connected with a lot of Marvel fans to the point where, like, and recency bias always plays a part in this, but if you look up a lot of, like, Marvel ranked lists on YouTube right now, you'd see Shang-Chi at the top 10, if not close to the top 10. And for me, that hasn't aged well at all. And I've seen the film several times. I saw it a second time initially, and then a third time, and then I also saw it with the audio commentary. And each time I saw it again, I liked it even less. Yeah. I'm at the point now to where, like, at least initially when I was very much charmed by Simu Liu and Awkwafina, and I still am to an extent, I just don't care anymore about any of it. And I think what's really worsened, of course it's bland. Man, Shang-Chi, I think, was really fucking decimated by terrible visual effects. Like, genuinely terrible. I think the more I see the visual effects, the more I just think they're bad, and it looks ugly and gray and, like, blah. And by the way, I'm talking about a movie that was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards. Terrible. So there's that. That's me. And then Eternals. God, I don't know how more I can... It was a very confusing movie for me. I think it's even more confusing because it ended up being a movie that I actually liked a lot in the end. At first, I hated it. I didn't know what to make of it. Then I saw it again several times, and it was kind of the reverse of Shang-Chi. The more I saw it, the more times I saw it, the more I actually liked it. Now, I don't know how many times you've seen Eternals, more than the one time or the second time? Just the one time, David?
2.
2 times? Okay. I know I'm not alone in this because I've actually seen some articles like from like high publications, like popular publications, that the more times you see the film, the more you actually kind of like enjoy it and like it. And that shouldn't be like, again, I've said that's not an excuse for why it didn't like grab you the first time, but at least my experience happens to be the more I've seen it, the more I've not only liked it, but the more I've connected with it. And I think what really turned the corner for me was listening to the audio commentary, particularly by Chloe Zhao, and seeing how the film was made. And seeing all the authenticity involved in the filmmaking process that is so clearly absent from all of the other, maybe literally all of the other MCU movies that are made, and how they are made, that's just, endeared me to it. So it is a film that I think actually, you know what, it's great for me. I love it now. And so at least I got one of them. So there's that. And of course, that's the one that nobody likes. So of course, par for the course, right? I'm always the guy that likes the stuff in Marvel that everybody else likes the least. And then I despise the stuff that everybody loves the most. Speaking of Spider-Man No Way Home, I don't despise this movie. No. I liked it. I liked it. I enjoyed it a great deal. I even saw it a second time and I enjoyed it a great deal. Then I have not seen it a third time. I'm waiting to get it when it's on home media, even though now anybody can watch it on PVOD. But it's the most unfortunate thing about the film is that it's just kind of an annoying presence. Like, it's everywhere on social media, for better and for worse. Like, people will not stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And I am done hearing about it. It's just not to the point where we have to be having endless conversations. It is kind of weird to me because the film is nowhere near as good as Avengers Endgame. And yet, and again, it could be recency bias, but I get the impression from some Marvel fans, they vastly preferred No Way Home to Avengers Endgame. And I just think that's insane. But hey, that's me. That's something. So what did that leave me? Well, with Eternals, I saw the potential of what Marvel can do when they let a director do some things within their confines. And then everything else, it just reaffirms the idea that they pick people who they know are going to like gel with what they do. And we'll get more into that, but those are how the films are concerned. And as far as films this year, whether it be in general, I don't care. If there's one I do care about, it's Thor. And I care about Thor because I like Chris Hemsworth. I like him in that character. I like Guardians characters, which will be in that film. And Taika Waititi is making the movie. So, like, that's the only Marvel movie that legitimately I'm excited about. The rest, I don't care. And the rest are Doctor Strange, and then Black Panther 2, and I want to say that's it. So, that's as far as the movies are concerned for this year. The TV shows, I gotta say, I'll watch them, but I'm not excited for a single one of them. I'm not gonna say I don't care. But there is no sense of enthusiasm for me in any of the shows. Because the shows, I think all of them started off pretty great last year, 2021. And I'm not saying, that isn't to say that they aren't really good in their own right. Because I think there is a lot of great filmmaking in a lot of those shows from last year. I mean, we talked about them at length. But I think all of them had some of the similar problems, where at their finales especially, when you look at all their finales, I'm talking about Loki and Hawkeye and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. These were shows that were so exciting in their initial episodes because of like, oh man, it felt like with this medium of television, Marvel was like not just dipping its toes, but actually like exploring new genres and delivering at it. But then the finales happened and it just came back to feeling like the same thing Marvel always does. And that isn't to say that all of the finales suck. No, I don't think any of them, except for one, I don't think any of them sucked. I just think they were fine. And some of them were good, but they suffered because Marvel does the same things they always do. Now, I still love WandaVision. I still think that is far and away the best one they've done. And nothing comes close for me. But I gotta be honest though, between the other three, I don't even know if there's much of a distinction for me to care. I barely remember Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I liked it a lot when I saw it. I don't think about Hawkeye, but it was fun. And Loki was great, genuinely, for the first few weeks. But then that last episode happened. Kind of blew it all up. So it's complicated. My feelings right now with the MCU. It's complicated because I want to like all the stuff they do, but most of the stuff they do ends up starting off exciting, but then it ends up back in the same place. And I fear the same may happen with just about everything we see this year in 2022. And it's just hard, honestly, for me to get excited or care about a lot of what the MCU is doing these days. So I know that was a long thing. But now's your turn, David, to discuss your feelings overall, to recap people on what you thought last year on the 4 individual films, and then also the 4 live-action Marvel shows from last year, and then how you feel about, if you're excited about the new movies and new TV shows of this new year. And that'll give me time for me to catch my breath.
Yeah. So with the 4 movies, yeah, Black Widow was a little bit disappointing. A lot of it's just mostly on quality. A lot of it's just could be complaints on the CGI with everything, honestly. Because I remember walking out of Black Widow and kind of going, if this came out after Civil War, I probably would have liked it more.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but it didn't. And so it was just very disappointing because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a good send-off to Black Widow at all. And then it was made worse later on when we saw that deleted scene. Oh my god, that literally broke my heart, honestly. When I saw that, I was like, dude, that is such a better fucking ending. Why would you cut that?
That should have been the ending of the movie. Dear God, with her, that interaction with that little girl when she goes back to her hometown, like that was. Where did the movie actually end? With like. Bum, bum, ba-dum.
Yeah, it was literally her going, you seeing the helicopter, which is a dumb thing because, people were like, oh, they just needed that connection to Avengers Endgame and all that. It's like, you kind of had one. It was the little kids playing all the Avengers, like that could have been your connection and all that,
Yeah.
Just maybe like give one or two kids like a better costume that they are the superheroes and all that. And it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe add a line that's saying like, oh, she's got to go back home or like she's got to help regroup or something like that. I don't know. It could have worked. Either way. But yeah, so that was just kind of disappointing. And then Shang-Chi, I still enjoy it. I'm excited for that character to be in more stuff and everything. And, but I'm kind of saying with you as more time went along, I kind of became a little bit more disappointed, mostly because I was listening to a lot of more reviews about the movie, and this one guy kind of changed my mind about it. And basically he said, at one point, Peacemaker was the better Shang-Chi.
Oh, shit. Well, of course that's going to ruin it for you because, what was the comparison he was making? Why was he comparing it directly to Shang-Chi?
The big thing was the father-son dynamic. A little bit of background though. The guy who I was listening to, he's Asian. Don't know what type. But
what country?
What country? Basically. Sorry, yeah, I don't know. And he didn't like Shang-Chi because he did not understand why Shang-Chi hated his dad. Now, so for some people, they're kind of like, well, he's a warlord and everything. He hurts people and all that. But the guy goes, yeah, but my dad was a gangster. And he was a shit dad to me. I hate him, like, even now. And, like, that, it just kind of really affected him. So when he sees how Shang-Chi's dad treats him, he's like, I wish my dad would have been like that. It's so
it did not register as authentic, did it? Wenwu was being way too nice.
Yeah, he was being way too nice, especially like that one moment where Shang-Chi was like punching the wood in his room and everything, and like his knuckles were bleeding, and his dad was just kind of like, "Whoa, you gotta take it easy there." Like, and he's bandaging up his hand and all that, and it's just kind of like, yeah, he pushes him during training, but he's also like not telling him to like work 24/7 to become the best and all that. It's just, he just wants him to motivate him and all that. And so so for him, it was just kind of like, this does not register for me. Like, I don't understand why he hates his dad and all that. And it didn't work. And especially didn't work after in that one scene where he tells that story about, how he had to kill the guy who killed his mom and everything. And it's like, first of all, we should have seen that happen, like him actually committing the crime and feeling sorry about it. But no, instead we're getting told, and all that. And so it's just, again, that didn't necessarily work.
Yeah, the structure of the film doesn't work that well when you go back and watch it again. It kind of feels all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And so with Peacemaker, though, you see right away how much of a piece of shit Peacemaker's dad is. You see right away that like he is the most homophobic, racist person in the world, and
proud of it.
And proud of it, basically, yeah. And just the way he treats Peacemaker and everything, like you do feel sorry for Peacemaker and all that, and especially like what kind of like really solidified their hate is the moment where, spoilers for Peacemaker, by the way, is that the scene where they show that Peacemaker killed his brother, and the dad immediately right away blamed Peacemaker, even though his dad was the one that set up the fight,
right,
for entertainment for his friends and all that. Like he knew he wanted them to like ump up this like the violence of it and everything. And it's like, what the fuck did you expect to happen in this fight? Like, you know? And so it's just, and then the big moment for both, it was when both of the parents died in the movie and the show. And Shang-Chi's reaction to his dad dying, it was just, dang. And then he moves on. But with Peacemaker, though, he killed his dad. And he straight up starts bawling, even though, like, we know, like, how much, like, we don't really care that he just died. We're kind of happy that he killed him. But, like, Peacemaker breaking down and crying, it's just kind of like, I get it. Why you feel this way. But your dad was, like, such a horrible person. And so it's, you know, comparing those two, there's really a lot to compare. And so it just, Shang-Chi's not that great.
I didn't think about that, but I think, that makes it seem even worse by that standard. All right, next on.
Yeah, what was next? Eternals. Yeah, that one does get better after more viewings for me, actually. I did watch it a second time on Disney Plus, and I was kind of like, "Dang, this first of all, the movie's moving a lot faster for me, and everything. Obviously,
didn't it? Like a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. For
like
sure.
At first, when you watch it, it's like, man, this is really slow.
Yeah, and then it's just, and then once you get like the whole picture of it, you see more details of like, oh yeah, this is why they're acting this way. Oh, I can see why they like each other and all that, or why.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's exactly what I felt like, especially the last couple of times I saw it when it came on Disney Plus, especially. I was like, okay, now I understand why. Okay, this scene, an hour and 25 minutes into the movie, I understand why we're here, why you're showing this scene here, and even more so, the transitions between the past and the present make a lot more sense as well for what you're building to. Mm-hmm. So even that works a lot better the second time or the third time.
Yeah. And so yeah, just Eternals really is just probably my favorite one out of the... Oh, wait, no.
The 4?
Actually, no, I forgot. No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Same with you. Like, I really did enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I still need to rewatch it. I've only seen it once.
Really? Okay. You didn't go back and see it a second time in theaters?
No, I'm wanting to, but I'm just like, there's more movies coming out, and I'd rather stay at home. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'll probably rewatch it when I do get it on DVD. I don't know.
I haven't rewatched it at all. I've already mentioned this, but I don't know if you feel this way, but there are some things, at least in my mind, that I don't think have aged terribly well. Mm. One of the things that keeps coming to mind happens to be the, I love you guys. All the Peters, like, you know, with such a short amount of time that we see, and them all like, you know, crying over each other and hugging, and like, part of that just feels like a bit hokey, too hokey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because of and I guess that's just... It works obviously a lot better when you're watching it in the film, but like, I don't know, it just feels overly done to me. And I think maybe that's more of the Spider-Man stands making it more than what it actually was. That kind of annoys me about it. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it is, but yeah. No Way Home, though, I think for no matter how good we enjoyed it, I agree with Peter completely that I still would have preferred the movie that Far From Home set up.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I don't know how much better it could have been, but it would have been a lot more fun. But with No Way Home, though, I'm still pretty
You had some mixed feelings, didn't you?
I was pretty disappointed with the ending. Yeah, like I mentioned, it was really sad. I didn't like. So well, I'll just explain it again. Basically, I didn't like how they used the whole with great power comes great responsibility line.
Without me.
The reason why that line is so important to Peter is because, you know, he gets told that, and then later on he sees something bad happening, he ignores it, and then the end result is that his uncle dies. Mm-hmm. This one though, he's constantly trying to do good. He's trying to help these 4 bad guys who we know like are really bad and everything. And I think, yeah, and everyone else is just trying to tell him like, yeah, you gotta do the right thing. Doctor Strange is the one who's like, you can say that he's probably like a bigger hero than Spider-Man and all that, more powerful and anything. So like, he's the one telling him like, hey, we just gotta send these guys back. Like, there's nothing much we can do. But Spider-Man's the one that's like, nah, we gotta help them, you know. And so him doing good, trying to do good, and then gets told that line and loses Aunt May. It's like, that's kind of not how it's supposed to work and all that. And then later on, he loses everything. Like, he's all alone. It's just, that didn't sit well with me. And the reason why, and I said this before when I first reviewed it, is just that the reason why that line is so important for Peter 2 is because if he doesn't do something good, it's because he believes that if he doesn't do anything, things are just going to end up getting worse. But he does something good and things still up getting worse. And so I just don't like that. And especially it doesn't work well gel with me because other reviewers are just kind of like, yeah, Spider-Man that's suffering. I loved it when he got his ass kicked by Green Goblin. Oh my gosh, he's so sad but losing Aunt May. And I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Yeah, like, this is not why we like superheroes. We like them because they'll just always, Peter did the right thing always in the end and all that. But part of the reason why we're so happy about it is because something good comes out of it. Maybe it's not so much for the benefit of him. You know, he's not going to get $1 million because he did something good. No, it's because that inspires other people to do good and all that. And so that doesn't work, especially like when he's at the cemetery and he's with Happy. You know, obviously Happy doesn't remember him and all that. And he's just kind of like, oh, I feel like, you know, when they die, you know, who's going to carry on their legacy and all that. And it's like, yeah, of course, Spider-Man's going to carry on his legacy, but like, there has to be someone else too to do it. And we don't know who that is. And so it's just to like put it on Spider-Man he has to be the one to carry on her legacy. I don't know. It didn't gel with me. Like,
so overall, the films, would you say it was kind of, out of the 4, a mixed bag?
Yeah, it's a pretty mixed bag. I mean, I would say, yeah, Eternals, I would say there's probably some problems with some plot stuff and the world building aspects of it and all that. But other than that, like, I think that's the one that like I genuinely enjoyed the most, probably.
Yeah.
So,
and that's also surprising too. Surprising because, it's a 2-pronged surprise because going into the year 2021, that one looked the most interesting. But then we got a wave of very negative reviews, and it's like, oh, okay. So like we're preparing ourselves for the worst.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's an interesting film. That'll come up when we discuss our favorite films of 2021. Soon, I would imagine. All right, now your feelings on the shows quickly here, on all the 4 live action series, and how you would rank them, I guess, if there even is a ranking. At least, go ahead.
I mean, WandaVision is my favorite. I love what they did with the character. Very curious what they're going to do with her and Doctor Strange and all that, but also just everything about it was really, really great. The style of it, the whole comedy aspect of everything. Yeah. Then Falcon and Winter Soldier, I enjoyed it. There's some cool action stuff and all that. I'm more so, no, I mean, I guess I like both characters and their arcs and everything. Falcon affecting the shield and all that. Winter Soldier sort of getting over the fact that he's no longer the Winter Soldier, trying to go overcome that and everything, which is great. And then what was next? Loki. It was fun. It was fine. But yeah, the ending just kind of like, oh, you didn't. I feel like you could have set up something bigger.
That's also a hot take, man, because like not that it's a hot take like that's different from mine, but it's also another example of like how like we just don't gel with a lot of the like the main like you know, perspectives out there. Like Loki, like people fucking love Loki. Yeah. I think like Loki is like the most like among the most passionate of like fan bases in the Marvel fandom.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, the ending was just a little bit disappointing. And then...
Very disappointing. It wasn't an ending. It was a commercial.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. Yeah, the very thing that we all knew was going to happen happened. Okay. Okay.
Hawkeye, I think that's my second favorite out of the shows.
It was a lot of fun, you know?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I knew right away that both Jeremy Renner and what's his name?
Haley Steinfeld
were gonna like work really well together. I just again, something about the way they do comedy in their movies, like I feel like they would have they're kind of similar in a way. So yeah, that was cool. But also,
I genuinely like Kate Bishop as a character.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's one of the new characters last year that really stuck with me.
She is basically like Spider-Man in a way where she only I think more so she wants to be a superhero because she just thinks it's like genuinely fun to be a superhero. Spider-Man obviously he wants to do it because he does think of it as a responsibility. But but both characters though they are kind of struggling to like get that in their heads that like, hey, there's some stuff you got to go through if you want to take on this job and all that on this responsibility. It was still in the early stages for Kate Bishop. We're at the end with Spider-Man and all that, but again, it's just kind of fun that how we're still like in the very, very beginning of her story as a superhero and all that, you know, and it's fun to see. Hawkeye. I'm just really glad that we finally got to see like his perspective of like everything basically, like how he's dealt with the Avengers, how he's dealt with the death of Nat and everything, and so it was a nice tail end to that story basically. And
that's the thing that's kind of interesting for me because like I are you okay?
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong.
It seems like you have a permanent cough lately because the last time you and I did a podcast, which was I think a few weeks back for the Batman, you were coughing nonstop.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's just are you General Grievous now?
I guess so. I just have a itchy throat and I can't stop coughing. It just I don't know what it is. Like there's nothing hurting. There's nothing coming up when I cough or anything. It's just I can't stop.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
That's okay. Sorry. I just wanted to like man like. It's taking a long time for you to get over this cold. If that's, I don't think you have a cold. You just have a cough. Yeah. Okay. Damn. The thing with Hawkeye is, I don't know if ultimately I would call it a better show than The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki. But I think I preferred it, if only because I really the characters resonated with me. More so on a more long-term basis. Where I'm ready for a Hawkeye season 2 any day. Whereas with Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier, there was some things that were, there was some stuff that was left to be desired. About like, some improvements and then what it would look like. And then like, yeah, that's all that stuff. And then quickly, what if, I think you and I are on the same page. There was like maybe one or two cool episodes, but on the whole, it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. The animation was kind of cool.
Wasn't bad. It was just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to this year, 2022. So of the movies, which would you say are what we have? Black Panther 2, we got Thor 4, and we got Doctor Strange 2. I don't know if there's another one. Originally, we were going to have the Marvels, but that was pushed to next year. So of those three films, are you looking forward to all of them?
Thor: Love and Thunder the most.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, Taika Waititi. I'm very excited what he's going to do. I love the cast. and it's just you just know it's gonna be fun at the very least. So I can't wait to watch that one. Doctor Strange 2, I guess I'm more excited about that. I really do like the first movie. Some people generally don't.
First movie?
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it more than like, I think for me with Doctor Strange, it's a good movie. It just, that's the first time I remember feeling like, this was, by the way, years ago. This was 2016. This is the first time for me where I felt the Marvel formula didn't work all the way for me. And it felt too basic. That was the first movie I can remember in that year thinking the formula got in the way of the film being as good as it should have been. Now, that happened literally so many times after the fact, but that was the first time that I actually, where I felt it the most. It's good. I just don't care about it. That's me.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah. No,
but you are excited for the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, a little bit. The multiverse aspect of it worries me. You know, the same worry that I have for No Way Home, but hopefully I can come around with it. But yeah, I'm mostly excited about that.
And that's coming up pretty soon, in about a month.
Yeah, so I can't wait. Black Panther 2, it's just a really big worry, though. It's just how the heck are they going to deal with Black Panther himself?
I'm just glad I don't care. I'm glad, because I would be worried too, because obviously Chadwick Boseman passed away. I don't care about that world. The first film was good, but it obviously did not connect with me the way it did the rest of the world. So
yeah. And
then I don't have much faith. Like, I think Black Panther is one of the shining examples of a Marvel movie where it could have been so much more, but the formula very much held it back. Now, what about the Disney Plus series?
Yeah. Which one is it? I know, obviously, Moon Knight and Miss Marvel.
There's Moon Knight, then we have Miss Marvel, and then following that we'll have She-Hulk, and then at the end of the year we'll have Secret Invasion.
Okay. I guess I'm actually just more so excited about Miss Marvel. Probably because we got a trailer for that one. I don't know. But
and you enjoyed it from what you told me.
Yeah, I really did enjoy the trailer. I think the main actress seems pretty fun. I think she might do a good job. But also, though, I kind of wish they would take on more of like the teenager heroes, just to kind of like really have fun with it. Also, with the trailer, people keep calling it CW trash. Like, from the trailer, they think they're like, oh, this looks like CW trash. And as
because it's set in high school,
I don't know what the reason is, honestly.
Because I don't know why they would think it looks like CW trash.
Yeah, and as someone who watches most of the CW shows, I'm talking about Riverdale is a guilty pleasure of mine. I'm starting to rewatching it, or not rewatching it, but I'm starting to catch up with it. I watch all this.
I don't know how you could.
I know.
Every time I see a headline for that show, I read like what it's doing then, and I'm like, is this still the same show? What is this show anymore?
Dude, no, for real. Like, I started watching the season that I missed, which is like, I don't know, season 3 or something. And, you know, I'm watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then it immediately takes a turn to like suspense, and I was hooked. I'm like, God damn it, why am I enjoying this? This makes no sense. It's
your guilty pleasure.
Again, so as someone who watches a lot of these CW shows, this is not CW trash. Just looks way better than
my guilty pleasure was Once Upon a Time for years.
Yeah, and even then I wouldn't compare it to Once Upon a Time.
Like, you mean below Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it below Once Upon a Time. Again, I'm only basing it off the trailers, but like, I've seen a lot of CW shows, and this doesn't look like anything like a CW show. This looks like just kind of. I would say this is more of a better quality Disney show, really, honestly. Like, it looks fun. It looks like there's gonna be some cool action. Obviously,
like a Disney Channel show.
Yeah, I mean, Disney Channel, whenever it does anything like actiony, it's obviously coordinated. It's obviously like just super
bad.
I would
low quality, low budget.
I don't know what it is. The camera work of the fight scenes, it's obviously like not the best and all that. There's not a lot of dynamic to it and everything. But you're gonna get that with this. And some people might think that's not a good compliment, like saying it's just a better quality Disney show. But I mean, that's kind of what I expect from a Disney Marvel show. So I don't know. And again, this is just a trailer, so who knows what's gonna happen. But yeah, I am pretty excited for Miss Marvel. She-Hulk and Secret Invasion, I just don't know much about that story or the characters in them, so I'm just gonna have to wait and see what's gonna happen.
Okay. Well, since we're with that Secret Invasion real quick, I should probably go ahead and start off. You know what? Sorry. We'll do this in the damn order that I already said it. I don't know why I want to jump back and forth. All right. Next we have oh yeah. So about those visual effects. Isn't it fucking insane? The Academy Awards happened, and 2 out of the 4 Marvel films got nominations, and none of those 2 were Eternals. There were No Way Home, and there were Shang-Chi, and they were nominated because they were more popular. There. That's what it is. Let's be real about that. Because if you look at it objectively, what the fuck is wrong with you? No, seriously. Peter and I have been talking about that, a lot lately, because it's just something that at least I've been noticing. And I've said this because I did a watch of the making of Eternals and the making of Shang-Chi on Disney Plus, and you just see the differences between the two, not just with the filmmakers, but then also the approach with the VFX teams. And then other clips have come to light, and really there is no substitute, I feel, for the actual clip. So if you'll bear with me, and by the way, this show, I'm going to ask the audience to bear with me quite a bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and play these particular clips. Now, this comes from the VFX supervisor from Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I would encourage you to look up the YouTube video of this. He discusses this with Vanity Fair, but I think you'll get the idea. Basically, even though you won't be able to see the images or the plates, but it is about how just about everything in the film, a lot of the scenes he discusses in the film, beside the actual actors themselves, is computer generated. And we're talking about scenes that are not even VFX. There shouldn't even be VFX heavy scenes. We're talking about scenes that take place that literally could be filmed outside, but they just refuse to film outside. Right? So this is where we start off with.
Out here is fully digital. Now, some of these pedestrians are digital pedestrians, and some of them are extras that were shot on blue screen. It's a combination of both. But all the cars, the trees, the moving leaves on the trees, that's all CG. In a sense, it's easier to create the world rather than shoot it in New York.
Yeah, by the way, keep track of how many times somebody uses that word, easier.
This piece was actually built. A lot of these things that were actually built end up getting replaced, whether it's to add detail or if it needs to be cleaner or dirtier, or if his animation changes and it makes it easier to remove.
There we go, that word again, easier. And by the way, he was referring to things that they actually built for whatever set they have, which, by the way, is still mostly blue screen. But when they have, let's say, items or objects, they still end up, even though they built it for the camera, they still end up digitally replacing them. And it's it gets to the point where literally everything in the film at that point just becomes computer generated.
So now we're on a wide shot. There's a lot of visual effects here, but the idea is that you don't really see them. It's oh yeah, he's on a freeway and he's just running. This could easily have been shot had we been in New York and locked off that bridge. It's a lot of money to lock off of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, I would imagine. But you could, and keep shooting that for a couple weeks and get a lot of angry New Yorkers.
So you see, there was that word again, easier, and he just said literally verbatim, yeah, we could have easily have just shot this for real, but it was easier not to, and it was more cost effective. And you may think to yourself, listening, why is this a big deal? That's why it looks ugly. That's why it looks artificial. That's why the lighting, especially, there's this gloss to it. By the way, this is No Way Home. He's talking about the sequence where Doc Ock reveals himself. Like, think about that. There's nothing visually, like, impressive in the least, or even vibrant from a color standpoint.
Ultimately, we ended up with where he's standing on a platform like that could be pivoted. Because his legs weren't moving or dangling in that kind of case, we often had to replace his body, or at least minimally his legs. And if he's swaying back and forth, something like that, we would often have to replace the rest of his costume. So in a lot of these shots, he's basically digital from below the neck, which is another thing that you hopefully don't notice.
I love how he caught himself there. Like, hopefully you don't notice how it basically is all completely fake. And again, like, I just want to be clear here. The idea, I'm not knocking the idea that you can't or shouldn't do these things. When it's appropriate and when it's necessary, you should. I think the problem that I'm running into with them is that they do this for every shot in the movie. It's over excessive.
Mm-hmm. The biggest... I gotta keep going, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Let me just check and make sure.
Ultimately, we ended up with where he's standing on a platform.
No, that was the last bit for there are still more clips, but that was it for No Way Home. Continue what you were going to say.
Oh, I mean, I'm going to be talking about like the whole VFX thing of all the Marvel movies. So
sorry. Okay. Well, then maybe I'll go ahead, because this next particular bit comes from a different exchange on a particular YouTube channel whose name escapes me at the moment, but they're all about people that actually work in the industry, actual VFX artists. And this one, they brought on one of the guys that worked on the visual effects for Shang-Chi. And there's a lot of stuff in here. So
to implement that as much as possible here, but it wasn't quite the setup. There's a fine balance between, getting the lighting that you want and actually making something realistic as well. So here we looked for a more beautiful sort of lighting scenario and then just graded the highlights out here.
So why not just film underwater?
Simu's not a good swimmer? I'm not sure. There are definitely certain films that will go that way for sure. It's just preference and cost, I think, as well, and just being able to go ahead and set something like that up. But it's much easier, of course, to film something in a studio.
There's that word again, man.
Suppose you have a whole pipeline built. It's like, we're already going to be putting in a CG dragon in the shot anyways. It's like,
that's true.
You want to color grade in blue and, diffuse it a little bit? It's like, yeah, I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
There it is again. Cost effective, and it's just easier. I love how that answer is just that's the only reason that they keep bringing up for like why they do things. By the way, this person was talking about a sequence in Shang-Chi where Simu Liu is underwater and the dragon first reveals himself to him, and why, and that was all in blue screen and everything. And yeah, a lot of, by the way, it's not just so much the use of VFX or at least I should say CG and digital like effects, but it's also the way how they choose to light, because what really makes the lighting a lot of the films artificial is because it's digital lighting and it's artificial lighting. And what's hilarious is they themselves in this film on Shang-Chi, and I did not, I guess, well, I mean, I have to assume that I did know this at some point, but they attempted to, they filmed outside, yay, a big VFX sequence, which is some of the battles in Ta Lo. But they were not expecting there to be sunlight. I'm not even kidding you. They did not anticipate that sunlight would be a factor. And I think what you're about to hear is really the final nail in the coffin for what Peter has been saying for weeks now. And which is why they do not prefer, when they shoot VFX heavy sequences, basically all of the action sequences, they refuse to go outside.
Wait, one thing about lighting. I really hate that they use like CGI to fix the lighting and everything, because there's already a difference between using an LED light and like what is it, HMI or no HMI? Am I thinking? Yeah, I think I'm. No, fuck.
Not HDMI or something else.
No, it's. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot the name. Basically, like using an LED light and using one with like an actual fucking light bulb and everything that like lights up like a whole.
HUV.
Oh my god, I can't.
I don't know.
I feel like it is HMI, but I don't know. But there is a difference in quality between if you use those two. It's a very small difference. It's like this. This is the only example I can think of, but like it's like using a Sharpie pen versus an actual like a
pen.
It's like a difference in pen, basically. Like it's a very small detail to miss, but like there is a difference. And so when you're using CGI to fix your lighting, it already looks messy, to me at least. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the part where they're talking about filming outside.
There's way more CG in here than you would actually expect.
Go back and just pause on one of those shots and let's just guess.
Yeah, exactly. These days, literally all of it could be, except for like the main actors here. So like maybe the ninjas in the background, the building in the background. The background.
You're pretty much right. There's just a small bit of grass in the foreground with a bush, but everything beyond the white banister there is CG. The big problem was that they filmed all of this in sunny Sydney, Australia. Everything was being hit by hard sunlight. So any plate that came in that had hard sunlight hitting had to be replaced.
Really?
All the characters, all the background extras were all getting hit by hard sunlight, so we moved every single one of them.
Wait, those are 3D animations?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So this is where it got a little bit wild because they had a crane that suspended this insanely large sheet. Basically, it was there to shadow everything in the foreground. And so you had this hard shadow line on the ground everywhere, and everything beyond that hard shadow line we had to pretty much replace at a certain point.
I guess what I'm confused about is like, why not shoot this in a studio then, and then eventually get to just really controlled studio lighting towards the end of the sequence?
This set was ginormous. It was pretty much the entire village, so they wanted to make sure that they could actually film the whole thing as much.
Yeah, what that guy said at the end is usually what they ended up doing, but in this rare instance, they were like, you know what? Let's try and film in an actual set, guys. Let's go outside. And then they were like, man, this sun's really getting in the way. So they had a giant crane basically like suspend this sunroof that would block out the sun so that they can then light it the way that they wanted to with VFX. Post. Wow.
The whole blocking out the sun, like that's a normal thing on sets and everything.
I mean, of course, you have to manipulate the lighting in some way, but like in this case, go ahead.
But to do it to like, so you can make sure you can fix it later on, don't do that.
Because in this case, you're right what you said there. But in this case, it's like they realized they would have preferred to have actually just stayed inside. Because the sun in and of itself was just not working for them. Which, I mean, fine, but I mean, there were other ways I would assume to get around it. So with that one, then comes this last clip here regarding the actually not the very last one, but I think it's very important regarding like how what's it called? It also ties back into Avengers Endgame.
This whole set was entirely digital. They started to film on what we call like a fragmented set. So they had just a little partial piece of the bottom of the gate and all the ground. The ground kind of looked rubbery. It didn't match up to our digital representation anyway. And you could tell because at a certain point in time, we started getting delivered plates that they just said, yeah, screw it, this isn't going to work. And they just started blue screening off all the set that they had already made.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing on Endgame where after the whole compound had been cratered, it was all shot in like this sort of like burnt out foresty type thing, and then it was all replaced.
Exactly. Yeah, no, our initial brief for that was the Avengers compound bordered basically like a forest. And at a certain point, they were like, no, let's just make it more industrial. And so almost all of the environment there was completely CG as well. We had to roto all of the characters and replace everything. I've had to do that more times than I can possibly imagine. Like on Guardians of the Galaxy as well. Like it's just a bit of a theme.
It seems like big movies take for granted these days that people are just going to cut out roto everything.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
There's a lot there. Quickly, just to recap, the first part of it was the battle sequence between Wenwu and Shang-Chi. And if you remember in the film, it takes place in the side of a mountain that looks like fucking diarrhea because it's so fucking gray and it's so artificial. It is honestly one of the most fake looking sequences, maybe the most fake looking sequence in any Marvel movie I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. On top of it being ugly. And remember, weeks ago, we've established the reason why they choose colorless, ugly plates, or colors, shall we say, or a palette, is because it's easier to actually work than if they chose a vibrant setting. And in this case, what this guy was saying is they had partially built that set, where the gate was and the side of the mountain, but they did that where it was part of it, only the ground floor and a little bit of the sides. But then they were like, you know what? Fuck it. So they literally put blue walls over the set that they built. And they thought that made it look better? Mm-hmm. When I see the final product? Mm-hmm. So that's the thing with Shang-Chi. Then with Endgame, when they're talking about rotoscoping, they're talking about the fact that all of the actors that you see, when they had filmed it, it was initially that set was built for a different environment. But then at the last minute, they decided, you know what? Nah, there are too many trees. Let's just make it more, like a blown up parking lot or something. Because that just makes perfect sense, right? I don't know why yeah, sure. And then, but then this guy was like, you have no idea how many times I had to do that. Where the but a big action sequence had to be the background, the entire background of a action sequence had to be completely replaced. But when they say rotoscope, is that the actors are still doing the exact same motions, but the whole background is just switched out. And I think that really explains everything, don't you, David?
Yeah, for sure. The thing I think that bothers me though the most is like how people have been reacting. Because you put out.
Don't you know cinematography doesn't matter? Don't you know visuals don't mean shit?
Yeah, it's the thing I don't like about all of like people talking about film lately is just that the big thing is that people are focusing on one thing that is important to them. And so for one thing with the superhero movies, it's like, oh, I just want references, It's like, oh, I just want this, I just want cool action. And I say that a lot. Like, I really do want cool action in my movies. If I get that, like, I enjoy the movie and everything. But, and then you got people who are like, oh, but the story is the most important part. And I mean, sure, yeah, because, that's, you don't have a movie if you don't have a story and all that. But to me, though, it's just like, everything is important to the movie. Not one thing is more important than the other. And I would like people to critique more on the CGI because, or at least on the quality of the movie, because part of the reason why Eternals is probably my favorite from the 4 movies, a lot of it has to do with that last action scene. It was really greatly coordinated. They had everything planned out, and a lot of it's because they were on an actual set. And the reason why it worked so well is
they filmed outside.
What?
They went outside. They actually went outside. Yeah,
but like it's not just because like, oh, you have like a beautiful set. No, it's because they actually were able to think of ways to like go about the action scene. They can kind of go, oh, you know what? If we go here, we can do this and this and this. Yeah, like, that'd be pretty cool. And then like, oh, since we got this thing over here, but then as you keep filming though, obviously things don't work out the way you want them to. Maybe it starts raining, maybe it starts, or maybe you're too late and now you have to like, the sun's on the other side or something and you just have trouble with it. But like, you kind of just have to work with that, and usually you can come up with something good. Like the mistakes are good sometimes, people, you know?
Sometimes the mistakes can get you to the actual destination more than you actually would have imagined before the fact. When it's like that's called risk taking.
Yeah.
That's also an inherent, aspect of filmmaking that Marvel doesn't like to engage in. Mm-hmm. That's why they film indoors, because they like they like to avoid risk as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I do have to ask real quick, though, David, at some point, if you can make time to listen to the audio commentary from Chloe Zhao for Eternals, because that would make for an interesting I know you're the only one that would bother listening to it because you like listening to audio commentaries, but it's very interesting to hear like all the different things, because Eternals very much is a movie that Chloe Zhao thought of literally all of the aspects, and she provides so much insight for why they planned and even how they shot certain things. But to just add on to it, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and this is why it's also important to like really critique the quality, because you get people who like nitpick the shit out of a movie. They kind of go like, "Oh, this looks really bad. This is bad in the story. Why didn't they think of this? Like, why did they do this instead of doing this and all that?" You know, you get tons of videos like that. People are just kind of like going over every single second of a movie and saying how bad it is or something. If everyone like lets the studios know like, hey, this is really bad, you need to more focus on this, then you will have a better quality movie, because that's what pre-production is. They talk about the tiniest detail of a movie. If there's a scene where some guy has to go to a funeral, they're gonna talk about what's this guy gonna wear. Like, is he gonna? Do we want all black? Do we want some color? It's like, oh, but this main person, this per character here, we're gonna find out that he committed the murder with the person in the funeral and all that. It's like, so should we give him a certain color to kind of like foreshadow the fact that he's evil or something like that? They talk about this kind of stuff, and like it's one of the most boring parts of filmmaking, because like you're going hours and hours of these little details, but because you're just doing it on a green screen now on some of these action movies, they're just kind of like, whatever, we'll just shoot, we'll see what we come up with at the moment or something, And so that's why there needs to be more critiquing on quality of a movie, not just the story.
Yeah, the fans should give a shit more about this actual stuff. That way Marvel can like produce better quality content, because the reality of all of this is, when you relied so much on blue screen, it's going to hurt these films in the long run. They're not going to age very well. Whereas films like Eternals and The Batman will age very well, because they used a very brilliant combination of VFX and practicality that makes those films, and cinematography, by the way, also. I mean, interesting cinematography that produce products that are going to, I think, stand the test of time, ultimately. And a lot of these films that Marvel makes are just not, because it's just digital effects. And it's just like, I don't know why people refuse to engage with this like complete role reversal. I know that the Star Wars prequels are films that people have completely changed their minds on. Sure, it's crazy, but okay, fine. I mean, I like them, but they're not good movies by any means. And one of the things that it used to be universally agreed upon was part of what hurt the films from being as good as they could have been, was George Lucas's over-reliance on what? Blue screens. I remember 10 years ago, everybody was bitching about that as one of the key factors for why those films were held back from being great. And now, fast forward 10 years, and now it's like, who cares? Yeah. And then the final thing to add on this lighting and VFX stuff, two clips. One's an 8-second clip from the No Way Home guy, talking about how everything has to look the same lighting-wise while filming inside, the artificial lighting. The second clip is a 50-second clip from the assembled making of Eternals from Steven Soretti, somebody who basically was beat into submission from Chloe Zhao to think about how to film this, not the Marvel approach. These are the last two that I have here.
Iron Spider suit, we need to light that in a similar way as everything else in the scene was lit. Otherwise, it won't fit in.
That's basically everybody in charge at Marvel right now. Like, everything has to be lit exactly the same. By the way, that also is another way that lends itself to the argument. Another example, I should say, that lends itself to the argument that all Marvel movies feel and look the same. There it is. Now here's the other clip.
That we try to keep is the cinematography aspect of it, trying to make our CG shots to match the style of shooting that Chloe wanted to retain, to keep it natural. You know, when you do a sequence on a set, usually what happens is that you have full control of the light. So the light doesn't change, the sky doesn't change because it's the same sky we use for all the shots. Here it's not the way it is. Every shot had a different sky, a different wind, a different clouds. So it's something that we try to fight a little bit, but then Chloe told us, don't fight it. Don't fight it. Make it look natural. We went there to shoot it, and things changed. Do the same in your CG shots. Just make it as it would be natural. You know, embrace the natural light and the natural elements. So that was very, very interesting for us. It was.
Yeah. And I think that says it all. I think that says it all. It's like, it's very, very interesting for us that we can go outside and we can make it look good. And it can be inconsistent, and it can still be good. Anyway. All right. So there was that. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. David, as you will know, all of the Defenders series from Netflix, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was also on Netflix, and all 7 of those shows, the 6 Defender series and the, S.H.I.E.L.D. being the 7th show, they were all moved over within the span of 15 days. They left Netflix and now they're on Disney Plus. Disney Plus updated their settings. And it's interesting to see a little bit of a renewed interest in this because as I was, talking about it with Peter the other day, it's remarkable how these shows, particularly the Defender series, at its peak was some really exciting shit. Everybody loved them. And then, as quickly as they peaked, they fell off the face of the earth. And they kind of no one cared anymore. So much so that all of the shows were canceled. Literally all of them were canceled. And not a single one of them had a proper conclusion that provided closure and finality. And I mean the Defender series. S.H.I.E.L.D. was the exception, but that was a different case. It wasn't the same network. It was ABC. This was Netflix. But it's pretty interesting. And when you see that these old shows are now on Disney Plus, and what really I think what made me made it feel real, more than just actually seeing them on that were listed and everything on Disney Plus, was that ad. That 40-something second ad that was released around 2 weeks ago, where Disney actually asked stars from every single one of those shows to come in and do a promo for their show. So you had Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Ming-Na Wen, Clark Gregg. You had I don't know the actor's name, but you had I think it's Ben Barnes, but he played Russo from The Punisher. You had Misty Knight from Luke Cage, Kristen Ritter from Jessica Jones, and somebody I never thought that they'd asked to do anything again, Finn Jones from Iron Fist. They were all. Did you see this, by the way?
Which one?
This ad I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
This Disney Plus ad where they basically were doing a social media promotion for all of those shows are now available to stream on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. And yeah, some of those faces I had not seen in a long time. And it just reminded me of man, when those shows were good, they were really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's man, that was a time. That's kind of almost a bygone time now. But it also, I think, is interesting because it shows you, at least, I think that's kind of enough evidence to show you that Disney, at least, really is trotting out the red carpet for them. They are getting a really good, and their ads are being pushed aggressively. At least on my social media, I see those ads every day. Disney pushing these shows, and it's exciting. Now I haven't seen. I'll be honest with you, I have not seen the Defenders series on Disney Plus just yet. I literally, and I mean this literally, have only been watching S.H.I.E.L.D. Since it dropped on Disney Plus, and that was something that I was planning on already doing. I rewatched the pilot for the first time in a while, the night that it dropped, and it's been 2 weeks, I think around 2 weeks since it dropped now, and I'm midway through season 2. So That's where I'm at right now. Just rewatching the series. And it's just really nice. And I think what's also just kind of a big deal and not something that I was necessarily expecting, but in its first weekend, both Daredevil and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were the only shows of those 7 that were on the trending tab for Disney Plus, which is interesting. And from what I understand, based on some of the reports I've read, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil in particular, they weren't really, let's see here. Yeah, since they arrived on Disney Plus in the US, Daredevil and S.H.I.E.L.D. have not dropped a day, not a single day, from the top 5 of the most watched on the platform. I have to assume they mean the most watched TV shows, or it could be all of them, but that's what it's saying. And that I'm not gonna be honest with you, that feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to see that, because I think both of those are some of the best shows, if not the best, of the 7 shows that were dropped. But you know what was really interesting, though, David, that in the last couple of days there's been somewhat of a change, and interestingly enough, considering a lot of the funny in a slamming way, things I was hearing about, S.H.I.E.L.D. being included in the Defenders, making their debut on Disney Plus. A lot of particular characters in the media didn't even acknowledge S.H.I.E.L.D., even though Disney did in its press release. It's pretty funny how many of them ignored it. It's pretty funny how even in all the advertisements and in the press release, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the very last show that was mentioned of the 7 shows. It's pretty hilarious how one person in particular, I believe I shared the clip with you, referred to the show as the equivalent of Will Smith's first wife in the MCU, as somebody that, has long since been forgotten about, but it's okay, we'll allow you to exist. It's pretty fucking hilarious that with all that being said, right now, 2 weeks in, out of all those 7 shows, at the moment, if you click on Disney Plus on the trending tab, by the way, of the date that this is recorded, which is March 30th, 2022, S.H.I.E.L.D. happens to be in the trending tab, the only other one besides Daredevil, and it's higher than Daredevil, and it's been higher than Daredevil for days now. Now, is anybody talking about that? No, of course not. I mean, we are, because of course we would, but I just think crickets and silence, it's hilarious. I literally saw in its first weekend an example of this bias. Grace Randolph, somebody who we name drop all the time and source, literally say that she saw that Daredevil was trending on Disney Plus in its first weekend. You know who was right next to Daredevil? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Did she say their name? No. So it's pretty funny. I didn't expect it. I'll be honest. I was hoping for it, but I wasn't expecting it because, well, it is the United States. But I think that, David, that has to feel pretty good to see S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of come out of behind. If even Disney themselves didn't see how popular it could be. Or, it's been 2 weeks and it's been trending for 2 weeks, now beating Daredevil out of all the 7 shows. What do you think?
No, it's good. We've loved this show from the beginning, and it's nice to see that it's getting some love. So
the plan is working.
Yeah,
the plan. No, I think the plan is working in the sense, and I mean that kidding. Kidding, but maybe not so, because the hope always was that now S.H.I.E.L.D. is the most accessible to an international audience than it ever has been.
Mm.
It is right there, fingertips away from all of the other Marvel content. Produced by Marvel Studios or not, it's there. And I think the fact that it's there, more and more new people are going to find this show. And I think that's a fucking great thing. And also, since I also was just being critical of some of the media's treatment of the show, I should be fair and also point out some of the positivity that I've seen. I'll just give you a taste here from, what was it? Collider, the weekend that S.H.I.E.L.D. dropped on Disney+. This was the headline. Why Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. deserves another look. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. evolved past its initial premise to deliver some of the best Marvel television ever. The ultimate conclusion was, yes, over the course of 7 seasons, any television show is bound to experience a rough patch or a dry spell. But with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you could always fall back on characters you love to get you through any of it. That's the sign of something special. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was underloved during its original run, but with the hype surrounding Disney Plus acquiring all of the Netflix/Marvel content, it's time to give the show its due. Amen. Amen to all of that. Similarly, we also have comic book resources. Wonderfully, this is what they, and I think also it really paired well with me like rewatching the first season in a number of years now. This was their headline: Why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 is better than you remember. And I have to, give credit to something I didn't even myself realize until they pointed it out, and it really paired well because I was just watching these episodes. But they speak to the fact that they had to find something to do with the first 16 episodes until that Hydra reveal that we all know so well. And I think what is so underappreciated about S.H.I.E.L.D. is they really did prioritize character, because they knew from the very beginning that was going to be what made people stick with this series, ultimately. And so, let me see here. It was about, the S.H.I.E.L.D. team in the first couple of episodes. And I'm trying to find the paragraph here that I need to read. Yeah, there it is. Since Hydra didn't reveal themselves until episode 17, S.H.I.E.L.D. used the preceding episodes to subtly build up to this discovery and, more importantly, develop its cast of brand new characters. This is best exemplified in episodes 5 through 9. After establishing the overall tone and general team dynamic in the first few episodes, the series then shifted to spotlighting 1 or 2 characters each week. Audiences learned about Skye's search for her family, saw Fitzsimmons' deep connection put to the test, and caught a glimpse of Ward and May's tragic backstories. In doing so, it quickly and quietly cemented their relationships with each other and endeared each character to the audience. Those were key episodes. At the time, I don't think any of us saw them as that. I don't think any of us appreciated them as that. But if you go back and watch episodes 5 through 9 especially, you realize, man, they were character-heavy episodes. And the whole point of it was to get you to like them. And I appreciate that more than what people actually wanted from them initially, which was, okay, but where's Tony Stark? Okay, but where's Black Widow? So there's that. And then I don't want to take too much time here, but this is a great piece by Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi, by the way, has been a great publication, and their coverage of the show has always been very favorable. But this is what they actually did, the most essential episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I want you to pay attention here, David, and see if you agree with this, because they picked 10 episodes of the series as the most essential. And I'd like to hear if you tend to agree with these as the most important ones. So obviously the first one that they came up with was Turn, Turn, Turn. If you recall, that was season 1, episode 17. That was the episode when Hydra revealed themselves. No brainer, clearly. That's one of the most important episodes of the entire series. No question. Next was What They Become, which was the mid-season finale of season 2. This was a game-changing episode as Agent Skye attains her true form thanks to Terrigen Mist. Skye was cocooned before she exploded in a quake of power. She was revealed to be an Inhuman, not just any Inhuman. She was and is Quake. This was her rebirth. We liked Skye, but we loved Daisy. through this moment of rebirth, though it's bittersweet, it cemented Daisy's ongoing arc for the rest of the series. The moment of Daisy bursting out of her stone cocoon is just as iconic then as it is now. I remember watching a lot of these episodes in real time when they aired, but let me tell you something, that was a moment back in, the winter of 2014, where Sky burst out of the cocoon with these powers. And in that moment, and I love how that was shot. I love the score that Bear McCreary used in that moment, that new Daisy theme. But that was another one of the moments where the show just completely changed. And that was one of the positive attributes of the series. Next we have at number 3, SOS. This was the 2-part season finale of season 2, which often feels like a movie in and of itself. If you recall, David, this is where they beat Daisy's mom. Mm. And Bobby gets fucked up. Mm-hmm. And Coulson loses a hand.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. and Mac cuts it off with an axe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of things happen on the show. Yeah. 4. This is a no-brainer as well. If you remember, let's see if you can remember this one, David. 4,722 hours. Does that ring a bell? This was, from what they call here, an episode. The episode here is an acting masterclass from Elizabeth Henstridge. She's alone on the distant planet, save for a husky astronaut that she gradually gets close to. Mm-hmm. The cinematography on display was a huge step up for the series as a whole, and people took notice. Fitzsimmons served as the beating heart of the show. So when Henstridge's passionate, emotional portrayal of her half of the duo is seen going through all considerable hell, you can't help but feel invested. This was one of the special episodes of the series, that's for sure, in season 3. Self-Control. This is the episode where everything blows up. Again, this is where the LMD arc hits its peak. The base blows up. You have all of these LMD switcheroos. You see Simmons cut Fitz. You see May kill Coulson. You see Daisy and Gemma almost kill each other. This Ada kills Radcliffe. And then you have the one of the biggest cliffhangers of all time of this series. The last bit, everybody's in the framework, and the last thing you see is a photo of Grant Ward back to the series. Mm. Next is World's End. That's the season 4 finale. Then number 7 is The End, which was the season 5 finale. That was supposed to be the original end of the series. And number 8 is Inescapable. If I remember, that's one of your favorite episodes. Inescapable comes from season 6. That's the Fitzsimmons episode, when they're in the memory machine.
Oh, okay.
Their minds are merged together by the Chronicons.
Yeah.
This is after Gemma finds him in space, but they get captured. Mm-hmm. And then, number 9, we have As I Have Always Been, the best directed episode of season 7 by Elizabeth Henstridge. That's the time loop episode, which also featured the wonderful monologue by Joel Stauffer, who played Enoch on the series as he is dying. And of course, at number 10, the finale, What We're Fighting For. And then they say here, how could they possibly end a show that was constantly evolving and satisfy every character arc at the same time? We didn't think it was possible, but the finale managed to do it. And then basically, I think I think that's the correct list of episodes. As far as 10, anyway. Mm-hmm. Were there any others that stick out in your mind?
A lot of it's just mostly with Fitz and Simmons. I think they did mention it in the list, but though it was the one with LMDs, but like Daisy and Simmons are like kind of working together, like they're trying to figure out like which one of them is the LMD and all that.
That's the one, Self-Control. Yeah, that's the that from season 4.
It's fantastic. Actually, I guess I had the list of episodes when I rewatched it and all that. Uh-huh. Now, a lot of it is just Fitz and Simmons. Gemma gets a virus. The Hub. That's from season 1, episode 6.
Yes, that's a big one.
Episode 7, Fitz and Ward go on a mission together. I remember that one just because Fitz really showed off with Ward and everything. I think they were it was also nice seeing Simmons being so worried for Fitz. Like, she even packed a lunch for him. It was great.
Yeah.
Tahiti, the team tries to save Sky after being shot.
That one.
Yeah. Ooh. I forgot that happened to her, and I was like, oh shit, she almost died and everything.
That shit got dark real quick. Like, the show is very much like, in those first 10 episodes, it's kind of like a very light-hearted tone. But then a turn happens, doesn't it? Shit gets real.
The Lady Sif episode.
Which one? There were 2.
There was 1 and
1. Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, they're both really cool. I like them. The Only Light in the Darkness. We meet the cello player.
Yeah,
that was great.
A lot of these I've just seen right now, like in the last 2 weeks.
I don't remember. I don't know why I put vague descriptions of the episode, but is it season 2, episode 2? Heavy is the head. Coulson is a great leader. That's all I put. I don't know why.
That was an awesome season premiere because this is like Coulson as the director, and like he is like a different Coulson because now he's a director, and you see he's a lot more like cutthroat. Like, he literally sacrificed like Isabel Hartley as she was dying to save. To get a Quinjet.
Oh, yeah, I remember now. Yeah. Oh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. that reveal where, like, Fitz was talking to a fake Gemma the entire time.
Yeah, and then, what is it? Season 2, episode 3, Making friends and influencing people. Gemma is in Hydra.
Yeah, it's basically all Fitz and Simmons for you.
Yeah, the next episode after that is... Yeah, face my enemy. Fitz gets new friends. That's all I put. Yeah. And he really does. It was just a nice moment. It's just he's trying to connect with the others and everything, and they're treating him all nice. It's especially for Fitz. Like, I really, really love his character arc. I mean, it takes a dark turn, obviously, but
several dark turns.
But. It's just the way from going from like their little shy nerd to just being like kind of like a badass out of all of them, and scary out of all of them. It's just I really like that character arc.
No, yeah, it's pretty fucking impressive. Like, for a show that was on broadcast television, a pretty like one of the most, I would say, phenomenal like character arcs, because that character goes through so much, and each season you see how it builds on the other, and how he's growing as a person. I'll say one of my favorites was The Real Deal. That was the 100th episode, where Coulson reveals to the team that he is dying. That was an emotional one for sure. That's also, by the way, I have to imagine that's on your list because that's when Fitzsimmons gets married.
Oh, yeah. I only went up to season 4. The rest... That's all I rewatched because I remember the rest pretty well. I just had to like look through everything. But
because they were more recent in your head.
Yeah. And so the last 2 from season 4, it was Simmons and Daisy get trapped. Yeah, they own these. And there's also the EMP device goes off. You remember that one?
I love that episode.
So cool. Just the way they figured it out. And like, Fitz the badass. Like, he's great.
I remember watching that episode. That season was special, season 4, because that was when I first moved away and I was at college, and I remember I was watching that show every Tuesday. Season 4 came on. And I even know the number. This was the 3rd episode of season 4. It was called Uprising, and it was like, it even had a cool like glitchy intro. I remember that episode. That was badass. That was a kick-ass episode. I think one of the best of the whole show. And I remember at the time like looking at the reaction on social media, and I'm like, am I the only one that thought this is a pretty amazing episode? This is great. And Fitz was awesome in that episode, by the way. How he figured out all of that. I guess the triangulation of EMPs or what, I don't know.
It was basically the EMP device just keeps going off. You know, usually it's supposed to last for like a couple minutes, but like it just keeps going off, so no technology is working. And what he did was like whenever it would go off, they all used the compass, and they all had to like say like, oh, 6 degrees north, 15 degrees west, and like he was calculating until he was able to find the center of the EMP device, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget, of course, season 5, episode 12. I want to say this was I don't know if it's the Devils We Know, or the Deals with Our Devil. It has the word devil in it, but this was the twist that the Doctor came back. The Doctor was taking over Fitz, and he literally tortured Daisy and ripped the fucking like inhibitor out of her neck.
And I love that one too, because again, it shows how scary Fitz is, he can be and all that. But like, I finally like that they brought up the fact that he's been through some fucked up stuff, and like, it's not easy to for it to go away, for him to ignore it. Like, he really has to like face it a lot.
Yeah, the injury he sustained to his brain at the end of season 1 still has repercussions all the way until the very end of the show.
And
which is why like that ultra personality was like taking over.
Yeah, and then I think it was an episode where it was, what's that one guy? Deke talks to Simmons and is like, and tells him that he's their great grandson or something.
Yeah.
But he tells him too, it's like, I remember my grandpa, like, there were moments where he just wasn't really there. Like, you can tell that he was sort of gone, and you kept bringing him back. And it's like, that's so good.
They're great. Well, this show is always able to do things to tackle storylines that on paper sound so cheesy as shit. Like like if you would have told me like months in advance that Jeff Ward, who plays Deke, all this time was playing the grandson of Fitz and Simmons, on paper I'm like, you sure you want to go down this way? But then you watch it in the show and the acting comes through, like you buy it completely. That scene with Jeff Ward and Elizabeth Henstridge that you just mentioned, one of the best of that whole season. I got teary-eyed just watching that. Yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of great episodes that you just mentioned there. Before we move off of this, I do want to mention some other stuff regarding Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And evidently, and this is kind of major, I would say, in an alternate reality, it looked as if it would seem that the larger MCU would have acknowledged Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because, at least in this timeline, there was a VFX shot that was unveiled over the weekend, I think 2 weekends ago, that it looked as if Daniel Whitehall was from this show would have been on Avengers Endgame. So this is what happens. From Screen Rant. What was it here? Despite the show making tie-ins to the films, the MCU never referenced S.H.I.E.L.D. during its 7-year run. Regardless of the lack of MCU movies acknowledging the TV shows, it turns out Avengers Endgame almost did feature an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. villain. Warner Reinhardt, who was one of the main antagonists in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, also known as Daniel Whitehall, was close to having a little appearance in the last Avengers installment. Recently, old concept art from Cantina Creative resurfaced, which features a clear shot of Reed Diamond, the actor that played him, his character from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., seen next to other Hydra members. But for whatever reason, it got cut, as it was never seen in the theatrical version. Reed Diamond, by the way, went to Twitter and said, "Wow, now the mystery of why they called to check my availability has been solved. Thank you. Oh, and hail Hydra." So there's that. You've seen the images, right?
Yeah, I saw it.
So, first of all, how cool is that? And then second of all, how do you think you and I would have reacted if that was actually in the film?
Chances are I would have missed it. But
I mean, obviously initially, because it would have been so tiny piece of the screen, but somebody would have noticed it.
Yeah.
Man, like, does this suggest that I think it's possible that what happened is because those images that you saw were for a close-up of the Tesseract. This was during the middle of the movie where the Avengers are trying to figure out where all the Infinity Gems were at all the different timelines. And that shot isn't in the movie, but it is implied that it is still there because you see it, a very little tiny chunk of it in the corner and everything. Does this mean that they actually, I mean, I guess there is possible, as I was saying, sorry, I keep losing my place here, but I guess it was possible that they were planning on going ahead and having a little Easter egg shield, since it was in the VFX shot, it was there, but then again, it was cut. And I guess some of the cynics out there would say, Kevin Feige was like, nope, not happening. But then you also look at the same movie, they had another nod to another show called Agent Carter.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, not just with Infinity War, but with Endgame, like the movies reward you for like keeping up with everything, you know? Obviously, we didn't get reference to like the Netflix shows or anything like that, but you know,
we did at some point. No Way Home.
Oh yeah, that's true. But at the time, you know, the Netflix shows didn't really get that praise. But where was I going with this?
Well, real quick, at some point, it's interesting because we know that I believe the actor's name is James Darcy, right, who plays Jarvis on Agent Carter. He's in the movie, and he very much is a reference to the show Agent Carter. But now we know of two separate things because of the shield thing. This really quick like image off in the corner, that in and of itself appears to be a planned reference, albeit however small, to this series. Also, there were several interviews the Russos conducted in the aftermath of Endgame that confirmed that at some point in the developmental stage, regardless if it was for all of 5 minutes, but at some point, yes, there were considerations made to including the Defenders in the climactic battle in Avengers Endgame. Of course, they were not. But it's interesting that while the film was made, there were considerations being made, at least to all the major shows that were out at the time, for a callback. Do you think this was cut because Kevin Feige was like, maybe let's not acknowledge the series, or it was just cut for time, or you know what, it actually works better if we don't use this, or actually it really isn't necessary? I mean, if I'm being honest, this particular image doesn't seem like that important to feature in the film for a close-up, much less actually there. I mean, what do you think about all of this?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because, like, if it's just an image, then like, why cut it out? You know, if it was just that, I don't think there would have been any bigger implications.
Well, editing, right? Like, there's also like you want to keep the movie moving.
I guess so.
I guess like go back and watch that sequence in the film, and see if it was even necessary to include that.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it for sure on that.
Because they do have images of the Infinity Gems behind them, but they don't really dwell on any of them.
Yeah,
they're very much off in the background.
I don't know. Maybe, I mean, it could have been, since this was in the sequence, right, where they're planning out when to go, right, for the Infinity Stones. So then, yeah, it could have just been editing, because, you know, they try to put in as much cool references to the past, but also, you know, they gotta, even though if it's a 3-hour movie, they're really short on time because they gotta, not only do they have to plan it out, but then we have to get the scenes where they are back in time, and some character development needs to happen in that moment. So, yeah, it could have just been cut out because there's no time.
Yeah. I mean, but as you say, it is impossible to really know for sure why ultimately that was the case. But damn, weren't we close?
I know.
We were so fucking close. So close and yet so far away. Speaking of, I have to imagine, as you've said yourself, that you've listened to our conversations in the recent weeks. What, if anything, have you made of me bringing up the rumors that are out there of Anson Mount reprising his character of Black Bolt from the Inhumans show in a cameo for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Did you hear about this, by the way, or did you first hear about it when I spoke to it on the show a few weeks back?
When you spoke about it.
And what was your reaction? I would say mine was pretty extreme. I was like, I will fucking kill people if like this show gets a fucking nod in the movies before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I feel that's justified. That's just me.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't like it at all. Just because that show was probably one of the worst ones out of all of them.
I would say it's the worst one, right? Or maybe you had one more that was worse, I think, than Inhumans when we were ranking these seasons a few months back.
I mean, I know. I mean, Iron Fist is like close to it, but I feel like Inhumans is worse just because I feel like I don't know. At least from what I remember, at least there was some development with Iron Fist.
I don't think there was anything redeeming about Inhumans.
Yeah,
there was not one thing that was redeeming.
Mm-hmm. It was the
kind of bad where it came off as a comedy.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I remember, it was just them trying to get back to the moon, trying to stop Black Bolt's brother.
Yeah.
And then,
but can I ask you why? If this is true, why? If it's true that Anson Mount, even if it's a cameo, why?
Yeah, out of all of them, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you just have a better time referencing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. instead of, unless they're trying to trick us. They're saying it's him, but really it's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference.
Yeah, I'll just end it off with a clip here from a podcast I found. They're called the Agents of Fandom podcast. They're not an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. They're a Marvel podcast. They talk about everything Marvel, but they happen to also be, I would say, as big of fans as you and I are of the show. And one of the guys, I think, put it fairly eloquently for how it would make a lot of us in this fandom feel if this rumor of Black Bolt is true. And I'm going to play this right now.
I just want to say on behalf of all of us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, especially those like us three who religiously watched from the beginning, who dealt with those weird breaks, the weird gaps, all the cliffhangers, everything. We realize, we understand that at some point the path deviated and we're no longer on the regular timeline of the MCU. But there's been some crazy rumored cameos for Multiverse of Madness.
Possible spoiler warning for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
TJ, you wrote an article on one. If we get a Black Bolt in Multiverse of Madness, if we get a Black Bolt from the Inhuman show in Multiverse of Madness, and we don't get someone from that show, even just for a quick second, you don't have to say they're part of the universe. You can say they're in another multiverse doing whatever, but they were in the universe at one point. Like you said, TJ, it was in the blueprint of the show to go along with the narrative of the MCU. This is the perfect opportunity to literally you could make such a massive fan base so happy with a couple seconds of cameos from the show. And we deserve it for all that we went through in the watching process, all the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And I think it's like, and I listened to this podcast. One of them actually says, I think a minute after, we're like, we'll be happy with crumbs. Just throw us some crumbs, please.
For sure.
Anything. Like, that's how low our standards are at this point. Anyway, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Go watch it. It's on Disney Plus now. Mm-hmm. It's a good show. At least I think it is. Last thing before we get to Moon Knight, real quick. Secret Invasion. From what I hear, this show isn't gonna be the main big Secret Invasion that is known in the comics, the Marvel comics. I heard that this actually sets up a Secret Invasion storyline that is going to have its own movie. Which is kind of confusing. If that's the case, why call this show Secret Invasion?
Yeah, but also, what happened to the whole you don't need to watch the shows, too?
Yeah, what happened to that? I guess that was bullshit.
I guess. Also, if you are really relying on the show to make a movie, it's not gonna work. I mean, it's just not.
You know, I think I'll give them this much credit. I think what's gonna happen is they needed. You know, I don't even know. I don't know what they're doing with it. I just think it's a vehicle for. It almost sounds as if like they needed an excuse for a show, and they threw this together. But it's like, on the plus side, maybe it'll be a character first series, and because it'll be a Nick Fury and Talos show, and I'm not opposed to it. I like those characters, and I want to see more of them fleshed out. So, it's not to say that it'll be a complete waste of time. It may even, in fact, if handled well, could be even better than the Secret Invasion movie. But it seems like that particular storyline in the comics is very much known for its like big twists and big swings. And the way that they've been talking about it makes me feel like that's being saved for the film. And the show is a lot more smaller in scale. And if that's the case, I won't be opposed to it if it means that we're actually going to be focused on these characters. Also, I think Emilia Clarke is playing Talos' daughter. From what I hear.
That'd be cool.
That's a cool choice.
Yeah, I like it. And maybe she could be friends with
Monica? Well, she should be Monica, right? Monica Rambeau?
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this is where I'm kind of confused, unless she's being saved for a surprise. I haven't heard anything about Monica Rambeau being in this show.
I mean, that makes sense. She's gonna be in the Marvels and all that. So,
right.
I guess I think that would make sense and everything. It's just, I mean, obviously some of these shows are gonna be in the movie someday, so I'd rather have them meet in movies, or at least her meet the Skrulls again in the movies.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's that. Let's get into this Moon Knight, and let's address the elephant in the room. That's the most important aspect of this. The Eternals have come home. Did you see this? That the Eternals have, for the first time with this first episode of Moon Knight, they're now for the first time included in the opening Marvel fanfare. You know how in the Marvel they have the Marvel Studios thing and they have all these images of all the different characters from the films?
Yeah.
For the first time, you actually see it's that wide shot from the first scene of the film of all the 10 Eternals as they come down and see the people at Mesopotamia. They're right next to a scene of Rocket Raccoon. So if you go back and see it, they've been added in there. So
that's cool. I didn't see that.
It's cool, and it's also nice to see Marvel does not consider them to be lepers or outcasts.
Yeah.
As a lot of the quote-unquote fans, well, I would say actual fans would consider it to be. So that was nice to see. So here we go with Moon Knight. Can I be honest with you? Is there really anything big to spoil?
No, not really.
Okay, because I'm glad that we're on that same pitch, because like usually we start off with these reviews like a non-spoiler fashion, and we have general impressions, and then we get into like the stuff that happens in the episode. I was very happy to hear and read, actually, Dave. I don't know if you saw this, but like one of the people from the show Moon Knight was saying that he hopes that the Marvel fans will be accepting of this series that prioritizes character and doesn't care that much about the larger universe. And I thought it funny because of, you said it earlier in this podcast, like a lot of fans just all they want is references. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how this is received by the fans, and I'm also curious to see if we generally care for it all that much, because I don't know if you've heard about this, but I've heard some very mixed things about the show starting in episode 2 through 4, because critics were given the first 4 episodes of the show to review. First 4 of 6. And one of the things that I've heard from that whatever cliffhanger happens in episode 4 is that it's kind of impossible for them to see how they solve all of the storylines in 2 episodes, which to me, and this is not anything different. A lot of the other Marvel shows on Disney Plus have had these kind of same issues, and I'm like, This is why I'm not a fan of 6-episode seasons for these kind of stories. I would vastly prefer, at a minimum, like Peacemaker did, 8 episodes. Just give us a little bit more than just like speeding through it. I want an actual TV show, damn it, not a long movie. That's what I'm asking for. But I've heard some mixed things about the fact that in episode 2, there seems to be kind of a step down with overall quality, because this first episode was written by, no, the episodes 2 through 4 were written by some other people who are not the person that wrote this first episode, and he comes back to write the finale, but he only wrote the first episode and the finale. And this person apparently is a regular writer for The Umbrella Academy on Netflix, which is, from what I hear, a very good show.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's interesting to hear. I'm curious how we're going to feel about it next week. And other stuff like it. So there's that. I have to say, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. They definitely had some fun with the action. Kind of leaving the mystery of like, oh dang, what's this other personality that's coming out of him?
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, like what the fuck is happening too? They definitely like. I think it was pretty cool how they set up the villain. You can clearly tell there's some magic going on with him, but also there's the fact that there's really no one he can trust. Moon Knight. I mean, like, there's no one that he can trust really on like how to solve this thing and like how he can get help stopping him, basically. Well, eventually.
What's his last name? I know it's Steven something. Steven.
I don't know.
Because it's like. This is an interesting protagonist. Very unique. With multiple personalities that we're dealing with here. On the whole, I thought it was pretty good, solid. Actually, even more than solid. I think it was actually pretty engaging. Like, I was like engaged throughout the entirety of it, and I thought there were some pretty wonderful uses of production design with all the mirrors that were featured at several points in the episode that tie in thematically to like kind of like tee you off about the multiple personality inside this vehicle of a person that has the face of Oscar Isaac, but there's a lot of weird things happening that catch you off balance. I love the choice in sound design when where you see Steven skip in time, because Steven ultimately loses control to some other personality, and we see him lose so much time. But for him, it's like an instant. It's like he wakes up from a dream, and when you see how like so many things that have happened, all the damage that's inflicted, that apparently that is believed that he helped create, and he's just so disoriented. And I thought those were pretty wonderfully executed. I still, at the moment, would not, and again, this is the very first episode, so I have to assume that some of this changes, but I still don't see what about it is particularly violent. However, we don't get to see really Moonlight at all until the last bit, so there is that, and then also, one of the things that is suggested is that I guess he ripped somebody's thing off, because one instance, Steven's hand is full of blood. During it's the middle of the episode, and they're literally on the set of The Sound of Music. The hills are alive. It's the same place. It's the same location from what I hear. So it's like it's the same little town. It is, isn't it? So there's that. But and hey, they allowed blood. Let's see if that sticks.
Yeah.
Real quick, do you believe that explanation, or do you think that because there's this thing that happened in the last few days where it was discovered that Disney Plus evidently, or supposedly edited some blood or bloody sequences out of an episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And then they reversed it, saying that, oh no, it was a software glitch that caused that to be the case. I don't know, one way or the other. It seems hard to believe, but it also seems confusing why Disney would do that in the first place, considering that now they have updated settings and there's bloodier shit on Daredevil, and it's now on the same fucking browser.
Yeah.
I don't know what the point of that would be, but do you believe that explanation that it was a software glitch?
I don't. Nah, not really.
It's
just why
it's hard. It seems hard to buy, right?
Yeah, like why do it in the first place? Like you just said, it really makes no sense as to why would they do that. And then, I mean, it's kind of surprising that people caught it. I guess I probably wouldn't have caught that if I rewatched the show. But I don't know. It just sounds weird.
Yeah, so we'll see if Moon Knight stays bloody. But I was trying to they were hyping up Moon Knight to be their most violent series yet. In what way, I wonder, though? You know, like how would it, like, I guess in Moon Knight's fighting ability, which we haven't really seen his fighting style, it's really just been alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, at the end of the episode, we see Steven transform into Mark. Mark is the other personality, and Mark inhabits the Moon Knight. It turns into the costume and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is it implied that, especially in the moments where, like, in that middle sequence where he's in the town, he's trying to get away, is it implied that every time that Steven, like, loses control and Mark takes over, that he's wearing the suit even in the day, and all those, like, henchmen that he, like, beats up or kills, basically, they're seeing, like, the Moon Knight suit from their perspective?
I don't think so. In the next episode, it seems like we're gonna get some background on what Mark was doing.
I would hope so.
Yeah, and so it seems like, I mean, I don't know. It's just there's just a lot of scenes with Oscar Isaac and the costume and everything, and so I don't know. I think it's just maybe he just does it at night, transforms into it. But also though, at that moment though, he was fighting a monster, so he kind of needed to power up. Whereas the ones before though, he was just fighting regular humans. Maybe he can handle that on his own. So
okay.
For right now, I think it's a no.
Let me see right here. Any other thoughts on the episode?
I liked the Steven character. I mean, it was
Stephen Grant. There
Stephen
it is.
Grant.
Stephen Grant.
Yeah. He was, I mean, kind of a sad character. Like, he's clearly confused about what's happening to him. He just wants a normal life. He wants not craziness, basically, and everything. And
I'm glad I wasn't the only one that felt that way, because I was like, this guy's. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, for sure. Not
like consistently throughout the whole episode, I felt bad for him because his life isn't that great. He knows it. Double Toasted brought this up, and this is a great point. I think what makes him kind of endearing is that he's not a sad sack. Like, he doesn't like he tries to be optimistic every day and just like goes through it. And he's like genuinely, he means well. But I feel like in just about every social interaction he has in this episode, I don't know what it is, but people don't care for him.
Yeah.
And I think they're very mean to him. And I don't get it. Like, he's kind of a sweetheart, and he's just trying to be him, and everybody keeps like being kind of a bitch to him.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of messed up too. But no,
even the fucking whatever spirit controls him is a fucking like idiot. Like, he calls him idiot. Oh God, the idiot is in charge again. What happened here? I don't know if that was Mark or if that was like some other spirit that's in him. I don't know how that works, but yeah, I just felt really bad. Because I think like Oscar Isaac, I think it really speaks to how good of an actor he is, because like this is like the most like unlike Oscar Isaac has ever been, like, unlike himself, really. And the accent, which I thought would bother me from the trailers, actually didn't.
Yeah.
And it actually really helped to kind of like make this Stephen Grant feel pretty unique. I like this guy, and I kind of feel really shitty for him.
Yeah, for sure. No, especially that scene though where he was going on the date, and you realize, he's 2 days late and everything.
That was crushing.
That was so crushing. And then he's just kind of like, they mentioned in the beginning of the episode that he's vegan, but he's just like, hey, this sucks. I'm gonna eat meat, I guess, like as a comfort food or something. And just like the way that he's almost breaking down, crying and everything. You feel so bad for him. So I really hope that by the end, though, he kind of gains this vote of confidence. You know, like I kind of hope like he's having a talk with Mark and he's just kind of like, this is my life. Like, you're just not going to take over whenever you want and all that. So I don't know. I hope he gains a boost in confidence by the end of the show.
All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about this as it happened in sequence. So we start off the episode with Ethan Hawke, who is also in this show. And I think you get an impression because he drinks out of a glass, then he smashes it in, and then he takes the shattered pieces and puts them on foot sandals, which he then puts his feet in them, and then starts walking away. It's a good introduction. But the entire time I'm just like cringing because like that has to fucking hurt like a bitch. That's just like,
I was waiting to see like blood trails as he was walking out of the building or something, but nah.
It's Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's Disney Plus.
No blood allowed. No blood allowed. Even though, well, we'll see. Yeah, we already said that several times and over. So then the opening sequence happens and we open it with Steve Grant in his apartment and he wakes up from a dream, and off the bat there are some pretty unusual things that we see. I love the song choice that was used as he's waking up, but we see that he ties himself to his bed. He's encircled with sand right next to the foot of his bed, and then there's tape on the door of his bedroom, and off the bat you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Why? It seems pretty extreme measures. Later on in the episode it's revealed like he's asleep, or at least he thinks he's a sleepwalker and he tries to keep himself awake in some way, but it seems like a pretty extreme approach to tie yourself to your bed even if you are a sleepwalker. So that off the bat just kind of like gets your attention. But off the bat, you kind of get like a feel for him. He's kind of a quirky guy, but in a good quirk. Like I don't know if this is gonna sound sad, but it actually is kind of adorable that I guess the most meaningful relationship in his life is with his fish.
Yeah.
Off the bat,
his fish and all that, but then also his mom,
a mom who we never actually hear call back.
Yeah, who we don't hear on the other line. Like we don't even hear mumbling, and so that's kind of getting me worried. That's like, who are you calling? Are you even calling anyone? And so, oh my god, I feel like that's gonna crush me when we know the answer to it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And he's but there's some even in his slang that's just they're just like small words, but you kind of get a feel for who he is, like how he says even to his mom later gators. It's just like it's just kind of cute. I don't know, he's fun.
Yeah.
But not in like in a mean or a douchey way. He never comes across as that. I thought he might in the beginning. He does, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't know if it was him personally or it was just the people he was around with, that everybody else was just so mean. But I think it like throughout this he gets to the front door of his building. He gets to the bus, and then he gets into his workplace at the museum. But it almost seems like every social interaction he has is pretty awkward. And like, I don't think he comes across that way, but he just happens to find himself become that presence for a lot of people. And I don't know if it's him that puts people off or it's just the ones that he's encountered with. Like in the bus, you see him like falling asleep, and he's he's standing up in the bus and he's like falling asleep on somebody's backpack, and the guy just like fucking pushes him off. And then he tries reading like some girl's like newspaper in front of him, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? But then when he gets to the actual museum, the security guard does not remember his name. And then immediately you see what kind of gets him going. He has a history passion, especially with the particular history that's featured at that museum. And he starts to have an interaction with this young girl that's there. And then it's just cut off by his boss. And his boss is, she does not come across very well, at least to people who are watching this as a TV show. I have to imagine that if we maybe take it from her perspective, that maybe it is very much implied that Steven may not even show up some days and is always late. And she mentions it that he's always late. And that's not okay, obviously, if you work at anywhere, really. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he's still employed may be an example of her cutting him slack. But you got to think about that because it does not come across that way at first. Like, out of the gate, like, she really feels antagonistic toward him in particular, and says a lot of hurtful things, I might add.
Yeah, for sure. Got really a good impression on the boss. But yeah, I mean, actually, I did like the moment though where he went to the museum and he was explaining like the history, I guess, of Egypt to the little girl and everything. It was just like a little nice interaction and all that. Shows how nice he is.
He comes alive.
Yeah, he comes alive for sure. And then, but I like the little surprise though, where his boss comes to him, and he's just like, "Hey, can you go to your section?" And he's just he's not even like a tour guide or anything. He's just what is it?
He works at the gift shop.
Yeah, works at the gift shop and everything. But yeah, it's just. It is kind of weird though that he just keeps getting in a situation where like people
are just mean to him.
Yeah, I mean the backpack one, that one makes sense because it's like, well, bro, you know, if he was like sitting down and maybe like slides to the side and everything gets on someone's shoulder, maybe the person would have been nice. I don't know, who knows, but yeah, but yeah, overall, like this is kind of a good introduction to the character, just kind of seeing how his life is. So
it's not great.
It's not great. No.
It's not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. And then while that happens, he doesn't seem to remember asking this girl out, who happens to be a tour guide at this museum, and she's very excited. And he seems to be kind of, stunned by it and not at all prepared. Clearly, he didn't ask her, or maybe he just forgot about it because of the Mark personality. Mm-hmm. Is it the Mark that takes over? Who knows what the story is there? But, by the way, we just said all of these people being mean to Steven. It's a little hard to believe when he's wearing Oscar Isaac's face. I mean, have we met? I mean, it's come on, it's Oscar Isaac. It's like, you're really going to be mean to that? Okay. But one person seemed to be happy to see him, at least for the moment. So there was that. And then I think we see him go about his day at the museum. This is an interaction he has with another interaction with his boss that it's kind of unfortunate, where they're just having a conversation. Like, she sticks him with inventory, and he's just like trying to, like, you obviously can tell he's very passionate about history, and that's why he likes to work here. And so when he sees things that are off or maybe not accurate or inconsistent or could be improved upon, he can't help but like speak to that to the manager, and she could not give a rat's ass and doesn't want to hear it because she's upset with him for always being late. And so she, like, I think she even says to his face, "There is no chance you're going to talk yourself into being a tour guide." And then he's like, "That's very crushing, actually." And then moves on to something else. And I'm like, wow, that was pretty mean. Like, seriously. And then, like, he just, like, basically, she asks him to just, like, get out of her face. Literally. Like, whoa. Okay. But, he takes that in stride. He gets out of there, and then he goes and has his dinner with what I first thought to be a statue. I was so, like, thrown off. I'll be honest with you, I was tired. So I could have been a little, like, out of it. But at first I thought this was, like, a statue, and he was, like, in a public place. And, like, oh, is this guy kind of, like, crazy? He's fucking talking to statues in public. And no, that was actually, I guess, a person. But he's one of those, like, exhibitors or performers, public performers that they do like a mime basically, but this guy's just not moving, and I guess they're friends. And you know what was hilarious? There was I have to show you. I have to stop this podcast so I can show you at some point, because I was on, obviously Twitter loves to comment on these things, but there was a comparison to Steven's friendship and the energy that had with something else that I particularly loved. Did you ever see New Girl?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the image here. I'm going to describe. So this is an image I'm showing David of Steven with the guy here, and the tweet was same energy. And in New Girl, so they compared Steven to Nick, right?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. They're going to bring
Nick and Tram. It's Tram, right?
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is one of the best tweets I've seen in a long ass time. Like it's literally uncanny, but it's like the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Wait,
yeah.
Did you hear the actor?
He passed away recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sad to hear that. This year. Yeah.
He was a great character in the show with absolutely no lines. Oh my god, that's so funny.
New Girl is amazing. If you haven't seen that show, it's a hell of a watch. Go and see it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, he has his dinner, he talks there, and then I believe after that he goes home. And then this is where things become a little bit suspicious in a way where it's like, okay, so he's trying to stay awake? So I guess this is the implication where like he is a sleepwalker, I think. But he's putting on like tapes and reading stuff to make himself stay awake, and he's very much frightened of the idea of going to sleep. Then we don't even see him like knock out.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to him waking up, as I said, on the set of The Sound of Music. And then I didn't realize this at first. I knew that there was something off about it, but then on rewatch I was like, no, his jaw is broken.
Oh yeah.
He literally just fell, and like you hear it, I think, as he's like putting it back in place. And it was, I don't like the sound of the cracking and everything, but it really is.
Yeah.
And then he's there, and one of the funnier moments of the whole episode is when he gets up. He's like, "What the fuck?" He sees this literally this Fantasyland like castle right in front of him, and then someone comes out, presumably a guard. The first thing Steven does is like wave at him, and then the guard waves back. And presumably this is the same guard that knows this guy literally just stole
not only
something
that,
from
but
them.
Chances are that's where he jumped from
Literally.
That window. And so the guy was probably like, did he just survive that? Like, and then he's just he has no idea how to react. And then when the other guy comes out, and he's just like, what are you doing? Like, and then he starts shooting at Steven and everything. It was funny, but yeah, that's a great
transition, by the way.
Great transition. Yeah, I really love it. I mean, it's just noise and a bunch of cuts of images or cuts to black and everything. But either way, though, it was a really cool transition. And so then, he starts running away from those guys and everything. Poorly missed shots. It's an open field.
Are these fucking stormtroopers?
I know. It's an open field. I feel like they could have gotten a shot or two or something. But yeah, so then he ends up in this town that was close by, and he starts seeing that guy from the beginning, and he starts gathering a crowd and all that, and apparently some of them are being judged. Whoever volunteers to be judged, whether they are good or bad. And if they're good, it's just, hey, good job. You're still part of the group, I guess. But if they're bad, they die instantly.
And we see it visually represented with these like interactive tattoos that he has, which is the embodiment of their, I guess, whatever Egyptian god, I guess, deems these people worthy or not. And what the twist is, that this particular god not just judges their past, but then also the future, the stuff that is yet to be. And that's how this person decides this god, I should say, decides if the person lives or dies. First of all, it's a sad commentary that humanity or members of humanity can be so stupid sometimes as to allow themselves to be swayed by fucking cultists like these. The idea that somebody is like literally at the town square and like, hey guys, you've seen this happen, so this is for real. If you feel like dying, there's a good chance I'll kill you, so come up here. I mean, they don't think of it that way. They think of it like, oh, well, you know, they're fantasized by this idea of a god out there and they want to find salvation, I guess, for one reason or the other. But the idea of like, there's a good chance I'll die. Sure, I'll come up and see what happens. And one person's like, they lived. And the other person was like, but I'm a good person. But you know what was interesting? I love the delivery of Ethan Hawke. Because like Ethan Hawke doesn't come across as like sinister in the least. Like he actually seemed very like compassionate in that moment. It's like, I believe you when you said you're a good person. Yeah. And you could see like he felt bad for her in that moment. But then he was like, basically like, I don't make the rules and bye, bitch. Okay, next.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. That's I don't know where that's going, but that's curious.
Even when he interacts with Steven, so like, yeah, he makes that little show, and then the guards go up to him. And they're like, "Hey, someone took the scarab. We don't know where he is." And then I like how they figure it out. He says some kind of word in different language, and that makes everyone bow. Yeah, because Steven's the only one standing. Clearly, he's new, and I love his reaction. It's like, "Oh, bollocks!" It's just, then he starts kneeling. It's just like, "That's not gonna work, guy."
Yeah,
oh my God, that was funny.
That was funny, absolutely. And what transpires next is pretty hilariously ridiculous. When Steven basically is asked to hand over this what's it called? The Scrabble,
scarab.
The Scrabble, the scarab, yeah. But then, like, he more than happily attempts to do so, but then Mark or the other spirit that's within him will not let him do so. And then, like, I love the look on Ethan Hawke's face, like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you gonna give me this or not? Like, what game are you playing at? And so it ends up happening where he's chased down again, and then of course all the townspeople and whatever guards are there, like, help to hold him back. But then we cut, and they're all on the floor. Steven's hand's bloody, still holding the scarab, and everyone's looking at him like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then he kind of just gets away, right? He's able to apprehend a vehicle, and then he goes down the hill. Interesting choice to include Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go. Which I will say, it did make the sequence, it did add a flair of comedy to it, and it was funny, I guess.
Yeah.
To hear that song as he's literally is like going down the hill. By the way, all this happening, him trying to drive, and then several points here and there, Mark ends up taking over control, and of course, we don't even get to see, I guess, Mark in charge. We just see the editing, him, cutting into the future after the fact, and all of these people having been like shot or like pushed away. It was a fun sequence.
Yeah, it was a good sequence and all that. I like the chasing. I kind of like keeping it a mystery that like, what the heck is Mark capable of?
Yeah. And the panic on his face. Just the panic, but and the confusion.
For sure. Again, it's just the whole thing of the episode. You just start feeling more and more bad for him because he has no idea what's going on.
And then he wakes up thinking it was all a dream.
Yeah.
And then you hear the relief in his voice.
Yeah. And then he just goes about his day, and then he realizes, that his fish, which they mentioned,
Gus.
His fish Gus.
That's not Gus, is it?
Yeah, they mentioned in the beginning that he has just one fin, but then when he wakes up, there's two now. There's two fins on him. So he goes to the pet store and he's just like, how the heck is this possible? But the lady, she's kind of like, I don't know, I'm not some expert, you know. And then she mentioned that he was there last night, and he's like, I was not here last night. But anyway,
I love that line. That line that she uses. The fish isn't right. No, the fish is wrong. The clock is wrong. You ain't right.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that was great.
Yeah, he notices the clock, and it's almost 7:00. He's almost late for his date, and right away I knew, like, he's been gone for days, hasn't he? He missed it.
I didn't know that. It didn't actually occur to me until like it was like revealed, and I'm like, fuck. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, he's waiting on a date. He's alone. Calls the girl. And again, he's just generally funny, like kind of like you said, like almost sounds kind of adorable. He's just like, "Hey, I'm at the steak place, steak time." Yeah, but she mentions, "Yeah, I already went there 2 days ago by myself," and he can't believe it. He's still thinking it's Friday, but no, it's Sunday, and yeah, and he's just. Again, this part, it's so sad because like he has no idea what's happening to him, no idea what's going on, and like he's almost on the verge of tears, just kind of like, what the fuck do I do?
It's like, it's actually, I think I think it's the best moment of the episode because it's a combination of the filmmaking and the wonderful actor that is Oscar Isaac really coming together, because you see in Oscar Isaac's face the realization of this man understanding that he is just like losing all ties with reality. Like everything is just like unraveling, and he knows that now. But notice there are other people in this scene. The camera holds on him, and it holds on him rather brilliantly, because that way we're able to see his evolving expression on his face. And it's that was like, man, I feel even worse for you now. This is really sad. Mm-hmm. And so he eats a steak, which you can tell, and I'm sure this was intended, how he's never had a steak before. He does not know how to eat steak. Obviously he's a vegan, but the fact that he ordered a steak well done, or what the fuck was with that waiter? You don't order a steak well done. That's not how you eat a steak. You burnt it at the crisp. Most people prefer I would assume most people prefer their steak to be medium rare. Because that way you have your flavor with it too, not just like a burnt piece of meat. But okay, that's simple.
I've never eaten it like that before, actually. Steak.
Well done?
No, medium rare. Actually, I've always.
How do you usually have it?
I usually say well done. I don't know, but that's only because my dad said to order it like that. Because chances are I wasn't going to like it, and I just did it like that ever since.
Okay, so
you see that, you're the second person. Oh. You're the second person that I know that's like. That's like, no, you gotta order it medium rare. Like, you gotta get...
Damn Mexicanos. Oh my God, these Mexican dads, they're all the same. They literally all the same. They have the exact same taste. Because that's exactly how my dad does it. And they don't even question it or care to even think of steak as anything else but that. Do you like steak well done?
I've enjoyed it, but again, I've never tried it medium rare. I am willing to try it.
If you enjoy it, that's fine for you. I just said that for me, when I first had it, medium rare or something else, it was a complete game changer.
Okay.
But yeah, that I would assume that's most people. That's interesting, man. Mm-hmm. That's oh yeah. Maybe if you have steak next time, try it medium rare.
I'll try it.
I don't know. Does your sister order steak ever?
She does occasionally. I think she does order it well done too.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. There are other ways to enjoy steak. I'm sure there are a lot of people who like don't like steak because they always order it well done. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's just like, it has no flavor.
Yeah, I get you. It is. It does get like very chewy and everything. You gotta add like a lot of steak sauce to it and shit.
Well, that's basically all the steak sauce. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I mean, yeah. That's the thing. So yeah. That's a side tangent. Just keep that in mind next time. Anyway, what happens next after this sequence? Do you remember?
Yeah, so he finishes dinner. He's talking to his mom, saying like, "Yeah, the date went well." It didn't. But just trying to keep her happy and all that. He's throwing away the flowers that he got her. He's keeping the chocolates. He's gonna eat them at home.
I think he tries to give some of the chocolates to Gus?
Yeah, he gives him like the sprinkles that were on them and everything.
How thoughtful.
Yeah, and that I don't know. Yeah, he does. He just gives it to them, and then he drops some of the chocolates when he goes to pick them up. He notices scratches on the floor, and he realizes, oh, it's from the table. Like it's being moved a lot. And he looks around. He knows where the table was set, what was it set up for, and he finds a phone and a key. And he looks through the phone and sees that there's been a bunch of calls to Layla, and I forgot the other name. It was like it was some weird name. Started with a D, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but the other name is a reference to the comics. Apparently, some pilot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then as he was looking through it, Layla calls, and she's just like, "Where the fuck have you been, Mark?" And he's just like, "Why did you call me Mark?" And the whole interaction was just weird and confusing for the both of them and everything. But Layla hangs up, and then that's when he starts hearing the voices again. But this time it is Mark. The first voice was, I'm guessing, the person that gave him the powers. I don't know. But this time it is Mark telling him to like stop looking into this and all that, which a really good excuse. I feel like just feels kind of dumb to ask him to stop, even though he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But and then just a bunch of scary stuff starts happening. Well, for him it's scary, but to me it was just kind of like, oh, this is pretty cool. Lights flickering. He's looking in the mirror. He's seeing his other image moving on its own and all that. And he just decides to get out of his apartment. He goes to the elevator. There's more mirrors. He sees himself, lights flickering again. And when he looks outside the elevator, though, that giant figure that we see in the beginning is coming towards him. And then when it gets into the elevator, it turns out to be an old lady. And she's just like so scared of him at that point, because she's just like, why the fuck are you on the floor? Why are you screaming? And everything.
Yeah.
But then it like quickly switches to him on the bus again. He screams again, and everyone starts looking at him, and it's so embarrassing for him and everything. But turns out he's in the bus going to the museum again, but he sees the guy, the villain, in the bus, and he's just kind of like, fuck this.
Oh yeah, Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, he sees Ethan Hawke, and he's realizing, dang, that day in that town was real. Like, that guy was real. Holy shit. And now we're just seeing, like, I guess the true power of Ethan Hawke's character, where he's just easily going into the museum, and he's trying to Steven is trying to get some help, but no one's helping him. Turns out they're all working for Ethan Hawke. And so it's just kind of, I think he just tells him, give me the scarab and, you'll be fine. Oh, but he also is going to, like, the whole Egyptian mythology, how Amun was betrayed by other gods, and his avatar. He makes a reference to Avatar, the movie, and the Nickelodeon show, which he mistakenly refers to as an anime, but we know it to be an anime inspired. Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, and then I can't remember how he left. Why did he leave? Was he just like, give it to me and then that's it? Or
well, remember there really wasn't made all that clear in the moment. I think he just figured out, I think his plan was to just kill him. Mm-hmm. I feel like he figured that if he got his hands on him, his god would judge him to be bad and then just do the job for him. And then that would be it. The scarab would be his again. But then it was just completely thrown off with the inconclusive decision. You kind of get the impression that's not something he's seen, or maybe even knows what to do in that situation. So perhaps he had to just leave to reassess how to handle this. Mm-hmm.
But then his boss saves him. I remember that now. That his boss, he's trying to judge him, but then the boss comes in. It's just like, hey, Steven, but like you're late again or something like that. And so that's how he was able to manage to get away from him. I remember that. And then it just cuts to the nighttime. He was in the warehouse, or like I guess in the back doing inventory the whole day. And yeah, as he's leaving, it's nighttime, and he gets attacked by some monster going around.
A literal monster.
Yeah, just a literal monster. And he ends up in the bathroom, and that's when he's in the bathroom with a bunch of mirrors, and Mark is trying to.
By the way, that is a pretty amazing bathroom.
Oh yeah, super fancy.
Amazing looking bathroom. I know it was made for the. Obviously, it's the only bathroom you would ever find on the set of a TV show or a movie, because I just like, man, can we just aspire to have more bathrooms that look like that? Like, holy shit. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the mirrors were there because they tie in thematically, and it works and it makes sense for the sequence, but it was a nice bathroom. I will say that.
Yeah. And then Mark is telling him, like, hey, you gotta let me take over, dude. And you can see that this is a big decision for Steven, because he's scared of what's gonna happen next. But he lets him, and then that's when we get the costume transforming over him. And he clearly beats the shit out of the monster. You know, like, you see the sink. It cuts outside the bathroom, but you see a sink fly by, and as the camera's getting closer to the door, the monster's trying to get away from him, but fucking Mark just pulls him right in, and he just, like, punches him to death, I guess. It's that shot in the trailer. We've seen in the trailer where he's punching someone to the ground. People could tell that it was a monster, and then he gets up and walks towards the camera, and then end credits. But yeah, that's basically the whole episode. And I mean, I kind of like the mystery of it, of what's happening with Steven and everything.
Yeah, especially if you don't know, like, the origins of this character before the fact. Like, I basically just went into this cold, like, not knowing what Moon Knight is supposed to be. I guess I had a general idea that it was like a split personality, but it still leaves you, like, on the tip of your toes, like, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just good introduction with Steven, with the villain, and with Mark a bit. But I really hope we do get more of a backstory with him in the next episode. We'll see.
Overall, though, it's a pretty strong first episode.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It's kind of hard to see a better way of introducing the story. So I guess we'll come back and we'll see how it goes. But ultimately, it's like, well, you got a great start. Can they keep it up?
Yeah.
As far as, like, a quality standpoint is concerned.
We'll see. And
we will see.
Really, my other complaint, the CG was a bit.
Oh, I hear that gets worse. But I don't think it was terrible. But it was wonky, especially with the sequence with when they're rolling down the hill. Yeah,
for sure. The whole car chase sequence, the CGI was pretty bad. And yeah, I did hear that the CG did get worse, but I'm guessing that was just because of first impressions of people.
It could be that. I did hear that there is a particularly ambitious sequence that happens that gets away from them because it's more than what the budget can handle. So, but that's all the details I have. Okay. We hear this because we obviously have read or seen non-spoiler reviews from critics who got the first 4 episodes. Yeah. So that's why I alluded to it at the beginning. There is kind of an expectation that the next few episodes may be a step down in quality, which at the end of the day is rather unfortunate because this is such a strong opening. But we'll see if we feel that way when the episodes come. But as far as introductions is concerned, it's pretty strong. I mean, I'm interested. I'll keep going. I really do like this Stephen Grant.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah, that's enough to keep me going. So I think that's going to do it for us. Do you have anything else to say, David?
No. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, David, for being here, and thank you all for listening to our show here on Red Spotlight. As a reminder, we've got a lot coming up in the next few episodes. Peter and I will discuss the crazy fucking Oscars. We'll also discuss the new films that we've seen and we've yet to see, as well as our top 10 movies of 2021, and then more Moon Knight recaps and a lot more. And of course, you can catch David alongside Peter Martinez, Kyle Lira, and Alexis Moreno on their podcast Turn to Page, where they discuss the books of Harry Potter. Next episode, they'll get into the drama with Ezra Miller. No, I'm not gonna do that. But wouldn't that be funny, folks?
Hilarious.
Of course, that would be very funny. Anyway, you can catch our podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts every single Sunday. A podcast that brings you all the latest stories coming out of the world of movies and more. And stay under our Red Spotlight until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.